Consequence Podcast Network.
This episode brought to you by
Nick B. Nick B. Fun fact.
yeah?
He sent me one on Facebook.
Nice.
He said he has never forgotten about Dre.
Wow.
Oh, yeah?
And that has been a request that Eminem made in the late 90s. So it's been like 20 years. Well, Nick B., what's his name? Dr. Dre will be thrilled that you haven't forgotten about him. I know.
Todd forgot.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
I'm so sorry,
Doesn't
Dr.
bode
Dre.
well.
It does not. I love that album. Chronic, come on now. This episode also brought to you by Ori.
Hey guys, Ori did the greatest thing for me this week. She got me an ergonomic mouse, which is so cool. Not like a squeaky mouse, but like a mouse for your hand. Because my hand hurt because I injured it playing the spoons with such vigor and vim.
Yes.
And like I don't have a brace on it right now, and I'm not screaming because of this ergonomic mouse that Ori
I'm glad
got
it's
me.
feeling better.
I honestly
Me
thought you
too,
weren't
dude.
screaming because we weren't doing an Eli Roth movie. So, I mean,
I'm
look.
so excited to do a movie.
it was both of those episodes you had a brace on. I mean, I'm not.
I know.
Causation is not correlation or whatever, but still, I think there's something to be said about that. This episode also brought to you by Matt.
Say Matt.
Orga the Borga.
Orga the Borga. You said it like an Italian person
Orga the
saying it.
Borga.
All right, well, let me give you some Swedish fun facts brought to you by Matt. The Swedish company King is behind the app game Candy Crush. It has been downloaded almost 500 million times and counting. That's almost one game for every person in the United States and Brazil combined.
It's real fun.
I mean, yeah.
Candy Crush.
And then you realize how much of your life you've lost and you delete it from your phone.
Yeah.
That's the Candy Crush cycle.
That is the Candy Crush cycle.
It's like, discover it while pooping. Hey, this is fun. Oh my God, I can't stop. Taking off work, losing your job, deleting from phone.
Yes.
Anyways, thank you, Sweden.
Yeah, thank you, Sweden, for that awesome game that we all play while we're pooping.
I know.
Yeah.
We now return you to another episode of The Patreonicals.
All right. This one begins with a big flash of light,
What?
Uh-oh.
and everybody finds themselves on the moon.
Okay, hang on one
Is
second.
this the season 2 reboot?
Why do I feel like we're watching Lost and they're actually in purgatory?
No. A man who looks vaguely human named Karun is standing in front of the rest of them.
Is he bright blue?
He is. He's bright blue.
Ooh.
Hey, Jen, do you want to take a guess as to what HBO show Mikey just recently started watching?
It's so good. Oh my God.
I love it.
Everyone's been brought to the one place, and it's like a there's like TV cameras, and it's on the moon. It looks like an arena. It looks like a giant version of the Thunderdome. And
Show me what you got.
and Matthew, Isaac, Eddie, Kate, and Tristram, the robot, are all there.
Well, because you said everyone is there, so I would assume that everyone is there.
This blue guy Karun comes out and says, "Hey, we're an international space people, and your whole society is collapsing, and it's hilarious. But you guys have been fighting really well, and so we brought you guys here because you've all like been really cool to watch, and we're gonna like make you fight stuff for fun.
In Moonderdome?
Yeah, and Moonderdome.
Well, it's also Murder Dome, but yeah.
Moonderdome.
Just on the
So
moon.
And Tristan tries to shoot him, and Kate throws a telepathy rock at him.
Telepathy Rock.
He's just a hologram, and he's like laughing. He's like, I wouldn't actually be there, you guys. That's really dumb. But like, we're gonna get great ratings. Everybody turns to Tristan, who's like, and he's like, I won't kill you. We'll be a lot. Like, we need to get back to Earth so I can kill you for the Illuminati.
Oh, so they're forming an alliance.
They're at least a truce.
So this is basically Moon Survivor.
Yes. Yeah, this is Moon Survivor. That sounds good. And it looks like there's like an alien base around them. They're not really sure, but they're in a big arena. There's not anybody in the stands or anything, but so a giant tentacle creature appears, and it looks kind of like Cthulhu or whatever.
Cthulhu?
And yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And Tristram takes out a sword from his leg and gives it to Matthew because Matthew's like, I just really want a sword. So then they all start fighting, and Isaac again has super strength because he ate anything. And then Kate's like, she throws Tristram on top of Cthulhu, and he's like shooting him through the head, trying to penetrate him. And Matthew's like doing this, and they're all fighting. And Eddie has a bag of guinea pigs that he unleashes on Cthulhu.
Of guinea pigs?
Yeah.
He had guinea pigs on his person when he got teleported to the moon.
Yes, he did.
You know,
Okay.
like you do.
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
So he sends some of them to explore the arena while this is going on.
Are they his Guineans?
Yeah, they're his Guineans.
I'm not sure if that's quite a Moonderdome moment, but I'll take it.
I loved it.
And so finally, Matthew jumps up and Kate uses her telepathy to ram Matthew with his sword through the thing and it dies. And then Isaac eats some of it because he was curious and he's a cannibal. And
so they killed a Cthulhu?
Yeah. And then Karun's like, great job. That was great. I'll see you next week. You guys can actually stay here. Here's some food. And then like they throw some food like drops out of the sky, food and water. And then they're like, okay, we'll see you next week or whatever. And then they disappear and they're all like really confused and they can't get out.
Say just chill till the next episode.
Oh, will our gang be able to escape before they have to fight again? If they do have to fight again, what monster will they face? Where did Eddie hide the guinea pigs? Find out next week on another episode of The Patreonicals. This episode finally brought to you by Chris.
Chris just wants everyone to know that you are loved and that you matter and we hear you. Lots of shit's going crazy right now and it's real stressful and bad. Or you're having a great time and you have got lots of love to share. So yay.
Yeah, and if you have love to share or would love to receive some love, join the Facebook group.
Yeah. If you need to talk or you need to just share some stuff, like the Facebook group is really great. There's a lot to talk about horror movies, but there's also like, hey, how's everybody doing today?
It's a pretty good support system.
It really is, yeah.
I like how Mikey is so not confident in my ability to come up with a laugh line that he takes a drink while I start talking. He's like, oh, yeah. I'm definitely not going to need to laugh during this.
It's normally like 12.
Okay. I mean, this
12,
is
13.
It's a long movie. A lot of shit happens. Anyway.
It is.
And, well, yeah, we'll get there.
Well, they kind of like, they go to place A, then they go to place B, then they go to place B, and then they go back to space.
And that's the movie.
Will that work? I'm Jen.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm the horror virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies and you guys make me watch them. But this week, you guys made me watch, and it's not a cash grab sequel, but I have to make the joke, Aliens with a $sign.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it's not a cash grab sequel is because this movie is fucking rad.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite movies growing up.
Oh,
and it's on the list of best sequels ever made.
I think it's up there with T2. I don't think it is as good as T2. And Jen, I know even bringing it up.
Nothing is as good as T2.
I know, even bringing it up will sometimes trigger you. But it is great. This movie is great. So yeah, have you guys seen this movie before?
A million times.
This might be the first time I've ever sat down and watched it all the way through.
Oh, really? Okay. You piecemealed it over the years?
I have tried to watch this many times over the years and got stuck after the first 45 minutes when nothing was happening yet.
So slow start for you is what you're saying.
Yeah. And now, and I will say I like it more every time I watch it. And I did really enjoy it. There's a lot, I feel kind of neutral on this movie. Like there are some big things that bug me and there are some things that I really like. So those kind of cancel out. And so I'm like, yeah.
It's fine.
I will say James Cameron does have a bit of I won't call it a pacing issue, but all of his movies start with a very slow crescendo.
Yeah, man.
All of them are very long movies. All of his movies are very long movies. And the first hour is like world building.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that we've already had an Alien movie, but he decides to world build it a lot bigger. And if you don't love the world he's built, like watching it again would be very boring, I think.
Right. And like the first time I watched it, I think I put it on. And you know, I mean, like I've talked about it. Alien is not my favorite franchise, although there are a lot of things I really love about it. But I put it on and I was like, after like the fifth meeting, it's like, when are the aliens going to show up? And I'm not saying it's not interesting at the beginning. It's just so much talking and world building and not stuff happening. And like if I watched it again, I would just start it in the second hour. And then I love all the stuff that happens at the end, because when the action sequences are happening, like it was almost so much shit was happening that I couldn't keep up with it, you know? And I just feel like more even, and it's so hard for me not to compare this to T2 because I just love that movie, but it's also James Cameron. And I feel like in a lot of ways, this was kind of the precursor to T2. Like there are a lot of similar themes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a very well-paced movie. And this one just, it kept losing me.
Jen, you might say that is a perfect movie.
I have many times said that it is a perfect movie, and I will say it anytime I have the opportunity. I love T2.
Yeah.
I mean, I see the criticism, but I think it's pretty well paced because you have a lot of explaining to do to get Ripley back into Aliens. You can't just be like, and we're off. You know, it takes a little bit to get going, and it has a lot of explaining to do. But I think it pays off so well.
It's like Lucy.
And I will give you that. I think that's me just not being a big sci-fi fan. that a lot of the world building is just not that interesting.
Wait,
to
are you
me,
saying
you know?
you don't get interested in this story because you haven't been to a space colony that that finds alien life?
And that is what I said in the first episode. And I think that was really me trying to find a reason for this not being my preferred genre. And I think it's more simple than that. I think it's just not something that really interests me. If it interests you, that's fantastic. And that's why I think you guys, or Mikey, you're more interested in this world building, whereas I'm just like, I'm here for aliens. I want to see some aliens. And it's been an hour, you know?
Oh, yeah. I love science fiction, and I love horror, and I love monsters. But like the importance of this film cannot be understated, because like the Space Marines concept that this movie like comes up with is basically emulated from like this point over in all of pop culture, video games, comic books, movies.
Everything from Starship Troopers to Halo ODST. Right?
Fun fact, this was actually heavily inspired by the novel Starship Troopers.
Was it?
Well, yeah, the novel Starship Troopers came out, but the visual style of the movie takes a lot from this movie.
Right.
I also did not know Starship Troopers was a novel. I'm so sorry.
It is, yeah. No, I didn't know until I was doing research on this.
Okay.
But yeah, he made all the Marines read it as part of their training. But yeah, I do think this is an important movie, and there's a lot that I do like about it. And I'm going to be fair.
Yeah. So the pacing of it didn't really bother me that much because I sort of did like the world building. I really like that he jumped ahead like 57 years. I thought that was a really cool thing. I was not at all expecting that. So I thought that was awesome. And it allows you to go back to literally the same planet they were on, but it's completely different. And they can really amp up the stakes because of that. So I really like that a lot.
I think they did that for Ripley's sake, too, to have her have like no connections, because I think it plausibly explains why she would possibly do this, because she really has no connection left with humanity.
But Todd, I have a question for you. How much of this plot did you know going in? And I say that because I feel like this is one of those movies where I've seen the ending of it 20 more times than I've seen the actual movie.
Honestly, all I knew going into this movie was that she was going to get into one of those like mech suits and fight an alien. I didn't realize it was like the mother alien. I didn't realize she used the airlock again. I didn't know any of that stuff. And the only reason I knew that is because that high school did a production of this that Sigourney Weaver commented on. So like I had avoided all of it because I just don't watch horror movies, you know? So that's all I knew. And honestly, this movie was rad. I watched it last night and then I watched it again this morning.
This movie is not super horror-y. There's some horror moments, but it's like pretty sci-fi action. Yeah, in my opinion.
I would agree.
I knew Todd would like this movie.
Yeah, it was rad. I really, really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I mean, we should probably just get into it because there's a lot to talk about. So let's get into this fucking movie.
All right. We open on space. Something is floating in space, and we realize it's Ripley in her escape pod.
Right. Believe it or not, it's Ripley.
Yeah. She's floating on air. I never thought that she'd come so far. Who's at the door? It's a robot arm. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's Ripley.
Nailed it! Oh my God, I love it. That was amazing.
That these movies from the 80s and 90s, humanity isn't as dark as they are in the movies now, because I totally believe that if this movie was made now, these scavengers would have just murdered Ripley and took in her ship.
Oh, totally.
In the Christopher Nolan reboot.
Yeah.
Zombie. Like one scavenger murders the next scavenger, and then
I hate that I'm about to reference Iron Eagle 2 in as many episodes, but like this could easily have been just Iron Eagle 2 and restarting the whole series.
Well, have you seen the third one?
No. Oh my God, does she die in the third one?
I don't want to talk about the third one. It doesn't exist and I hate it.
Oh my God. Okay.
So Ripley is alive. Hooray. But now these guys are pissed because they can't salvage the ship.
Pissed. They're like, I guess we're not scavenging it. She's alive. And I was like, well, I'm glad that some people are still nice people overall.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're on a space station outside Earth, and she's in a medical bay, and Paul Reiser is there. And this is when I remembered how dreamy Paul Reiser is, because until you, spoilers, find out he's evil.
Right.
I mean, he's young and hot in this movie.
And he seems super nice in this scene. Like he's
he does.
Trying to explain what happened. And he's like, oh my God, they haven't told you. Listen, you left in your early 30s, but you are now an 88-year-old woman or whatever.
Right. But you don't look like you've aged a day.
No,
so
and honestly, she's
really
looking great in her old advanced age.
Yeah.
I mean, she still looks good. I'll say it.
She does, dude. Sigourney Weaver is awesome.
She's amazing.
But he does say at some point, he works for the company, but don't let that fool you. I'm really okay. Which, knowing what was going to happen, I was like, that's a little riser
If you have to
shadowing,
say it, you're probably not okay.
Yeah.
What was that thing it was the thing? Oh, I would never. That's what I was trying to think of.
Oh, yeah. If someone says, I would never, they are actively doing that thing. Yeah.
To be honest. So everything you just told me you weren't honest about.
And honestly, if anyone ever says, to be honest, I would never, that's a double red flag. You got to bounce immediately. Yeah.
Anyways, but then she starts having chest pains, and Jonesy is not having it. He runs away. And then we see a chest burster, and it comes up under her skin, but it doesn't exactly burst through. And then, she wakes up. It was all a dream.
It was all a dream. And I thought that because she woke up, the Paul Reiser revelation of it's like 57 or however many years in the future, I thought that was also a part of the dream. And it took me a little while to be like, oh, no shit. She actually is like 50 years in the future.
Yeah, now they're going with it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So only part of that was a dream.
Okay, so the next 15 minutes of the film can be summed up by one, she has PTSD, obviously, and two,
clearly,
lots of bureaucratic company nonsense where they're like, what happened? That was really expensive. You're no longer a flight officer, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
She's really upset.
Yeah, they don't believe her. Yeah, and that is one of the things I really do like is I think it's a pretty accurate depiction of PTSD, in a way that's not like trying to hit you over the head with it. Kind of like in Jaws. It's like, oh yeah, this is how humans react to these traumatic things.
Here's what I don't understand about this movie, and this is what bothers me, because the company's like, this doesn't sound very plausible. But the Marines talk like they've met like 7 species and like interacted with them.
I had that note too, because when the Marines get there, they're like, oh, this is just another bug hunt. So they've done this before, right?
And they also talk about Artanian poon or whatever.
I'm sorry, what was that?
They talk about some made-up species vagina.
Ooh,
I
not in
must
my
have missed
movie.
that. Yeah, I was not aware that they were talking about...
Is that in the porn director's cut?
No. It's when they're at the table when they're eating after the knife thing.
Oh, I tuned a lot of that out.
Probably because they were talking about alien vagina. I get it, Jen.
But yeah, I mean, this should not be that difficult to believe. And I saw a lot of parallels to kind of stuff that's going on right now. It's like this corporation not really caring about things that don't directly affect them, only caring about their bottom line. So it benefits them to not believe this because they already have this colony set up and they don't want to have to go like take the colony down.
Yeah, they literally sent 50 or 60 or 60 or 70 families to this planet.
Yeah.
But on the face value, they don't believe her, but they actually do believe her, and that's why they send the colonists to investigate the spaceship.
Is that why they sent the colonists? I thought they were trying to colonize the planet.
They did send the colonists to colonize the planet, but once she tells her story, then they send them to investigate the spaceship from that colony.
Yeah, and that's kind of some of the insidiousness that I think I'm talking about is like that, yeah, you're pretending to have this good motive, but really you're sinister and you're only in it for yourself. And there's also this not believing her, which is just like the trope in horror where they don't believe women when clearly there's a bunch of evidence and you've seen stuff like this already. And what reason do you have not to believe her except that she's just a woman?
Well,
and you don't?
In the company's defense,
oh, dear God.
they find her in an escape pod, and there is no evidence that an alien existed. But her ship is missing, and it blew up 50 years ago. And then she's like, yeah, we were killed by an alien we picked up on the side of the road.
Sure. I mean, I guess they don't necessarily have that evidence, except unless you've been on other bug hunts where you know creatures could possibly exist.
This is where I think they shouldn't have done that. Either have aliens be everywhere and have them believe her, or have no aliens and then be like, oh, well, we because it almost insinuated we've colonized 300 planets and we've never had anything like that happen, which I was like, they've never met an alien or they've never had like that hostile of a species they met. Like it didn't get specific enough.
I think it was more of the latter. So for me, it made sense that the Marines had to go and like annihilate alien like species, but not intelligent life, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
They had to go clear out like what would be the equivalent of like lions or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And this would be truly the first time they met an intelligent race, which is why I think when Ripley wakes up and tells them about the spaceship on the planet, that's when Paul Reiser tells the colonists to go check out the spaceship. Early on in this movie, there are like some time jumps, right? Because after the meeting where they tell her that they sent 50 or 60 families, it then shows her in her like apartment, and that's probably a few months because Paul Reiser mentions that, you know, she's been working as a loader on some space bay or whatever, and
she's got short hair now.
Yeah, so we can tell it's been like months or maybe weeks, but it's been a while since she got back and had that meeting.
I think there are a lot of complicated reasons. Like, yes, there's not a whole lot of evidence, but I think mainly they don't believe her because it's inconvenient for them to believe her, which is a reason that a lot of people don't believe women when they say things are happening. Like, what's at stake makes it more valuable to just pretend that she's crazy.
Right.
You know, which is just another way of gaslighting, you know?
So for me, I think they believe her. I also think they're gaslighting her because they send the colonists to go see the spaceship and explore it. So they believe her. They just don't want her to know they believe her, which is where the gaslighting comes in. And I think that's bullshit,
and so when I say like believe, what I think what I really mean is believe and do something about it. You know, believe and take it seriously.
They're not good people. They're like, let's sacrifice that colony so we can find out what this species is like.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's a very like corporation capitalist kind of undercurrent to this entire franchise.
Yeah, this movie does very much talk about the negative effects of late stage capitalism. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I like about it.
Me too.
I mean, I think there's a lot of themes you can really dig into in this movie. Some of them that work and some of them that don't for me, but that's one of them that works.
Yeah.
All right.
But in that scene where Ripley is talking to Paul Reiser and Gorman, the lieutenant, they're like trying to talk her into going with them just as a consultant.
In the time jump, they're like, we've lost contact with that colony.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And now they're going to send a spaceship out to go investigate, or Space Marines, as we know, right? So they're trying to get her to go in a consultant capacity, right?
You know what stood out to me in that scene? I just wrote in my notes, ash your goddamn cigarette, Ripley. Did you see how long that ash was in the beginning? It was like she started smoking at the end of the meeting from the previous scene and has just been smoking that cigarette until Paul Reiser showed up.
It's the future cigarettes. They can smoke them for months.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
I like that, though, because it just showed her like lost in thought. And that I think that
it did,
is again like sort of in a subtle way showing the PTSD that she's dealing with.
I think so too. Yeah, and it's like showing it without naming it, which I really like, because then I feel like it's really authentic. But yeah, they want her to go out.
We can guarantee your safety. We want you as a consultant. Blah 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 blah.
Exactly, which is just like saying honestly, because you can't ever guarantee anybody's safety. I was like, okay,
you could have guaranteed her safety if she stayed on the ship.
Yep, Jen, I would never put you in danger. That's what Gorman says.
Exactly.
Yeah. Never believe anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. We're all fucked, guys. But they're also saying, I can get you reinstated as a pilot or a pilot advisor or an officer. I can't remember exactly what her job was.
It's like a flight officer. Yeah.
What she was doing in the first movie. Like, she would really want to go back to doing that.
Right, because and Paul Reiser is very like he's giving her some loader shade too. He's like, and it's also the only thing you could get.
Yeah.
And then he gives her this really cool business card, and I want business cards like that.
You mean where you can just stick it in your phone and it automatically calls that person, and then to hang up, you yank it out? Like
I know, it's so cool.
And you see, in the future, spam calls got so bad that you can't actually talk to someone else's phone unless they give you a card you put into your phone that allows you to access their phone.
I really like this idea a lot.
But she wakes up from another bad dream, and this is when we find out how the card works, and it's just fascinating
because she calls Paul Reiser.
She does in the middle of the night, and this is another time I was like, ooh, dreamy.
Yes, he is shirtless. He is shirtless.
Yeah, and
he doesn't seem to be alone in his room. Somebody's in that room with him because he's like looking around.
I mean, young Paul Reiser, he was definitely pulling some for sure.
I feel like there's a point in this movie where he has a sweater tied around his neck. And I was into it.
Okay, but he's like he's like an Earth 7, but like Space Station 9.
Oh yeah,
exactly,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And that business card added a full point. It's see-through.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
You realize you can get see-through business cards, Jen, right?
What? Hang on, guys. Okay, hold on. I'll be back in an hour. But so she's calling to ask him, not are you alone, but you're going out there to destroy them, not to study them or bring them back. And he says, oh, no, sure, I would never do that.
I would
That's
never
evil.
study them. No.
You have my word.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have sinister motivations at all. And then he like pushes the xenomorph queen like out of the bed.
bed.
The video caption with him. Yeah.
That's who was in the room with him, Mikey.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where do you think she got those eggs fertilized?
Ooh.
Dude, okay, now I'm envisioning a Paul Reiser xenomorph queen hybrid species.
It looks like a xenomorph, but it has a sweater tied around it.
Sweater tied around it. And it's really funny, but in kind of an unassuming way, you know?
Now I'm just thinking every Mad About You episode, but instead of Helen Hunt, it's a xenomorph,
It's a xenomorph.
queen. Yeah.
Hey, she has good hair though, so we could put like
Absolutely.
Mad
Mikey's
About You.
clearly never
Deep
seen
cut.
Mad About You.
I just don't
Tell
think
me
it.
why you don't want to talk about this show.
I just don't like 90s sitcoms as much as you two.
All right, so now we're on another ship, and I noticed I'm going to post a lot of links about stuff because there's so much to say about this movie, and we're not going to have time to get into all of it. But there was one talking about how the ship looks very much like a gun, you know, just how it's shaped.
It sort of does. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that, but you're right.
Which I think is kind of representative of this movie. Like the tagline for this movie is "This time it's war," which I think fits really well, and I think that's kind of leaning into it. And there's a lot more to say about that
In
later.
space, you can fly a gun.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so now we have a bunch of people in their stasis pods and the computer waking them up.
Can I ask a question before we move on from the stasis pod thing?
Uh-huh.
First off, why do you have to be in your underwear to be in a stasis pod?
I was wondering about that.
That doesn't make any sense at all. And as they start to wake up, you see the captain in his underwear before he gets out of his stasis pod, put a cigar in his mouth.
Yep.
Where was that cigar?
He's a sergeant. He's not the captain.
Sorry, excuse me. I think you're focusing on the wrong part of the question, Mikey.
Also, why can't they have blankets? It made me cold to watch that.
Yeah.
So his character, this sergeant character, puts the cigar and starts yelling at everybody, has been emulated so many times.
I know.
On
You're right.
so many platforms.
Yes.
And which is so bizarre to me because he doesn't have a big part in this movie.
He doesn't. No, he apparently actually was in the military too, and he says that's part of like how he thinks he got cast. Yeah, it reminded me of a lot of things I've seen after this, but also a little bit Apocalypse Now too. Although he's kind of like a nicer captain. I liked him.
Yeah, I liked him too. It really concerns me where he had that cigar.
Also, like, how do you establish credibility in your underwear? You know, like authority.
Jen, we don't have time, but there are ways.
Yeah.
Mikey, I would go to that seminar if you're putting one on.
To say, hey, Captain, is that a cigar in your underwear? Or did you just wake up from stasis? You think when they hook up, they call it a stasis-cation?
A staycation?
Stagecation. They can't say it, so it doesn't work out. That's the nerd.
Also,
Yeah.
the science concern to me is like, okay, so they go to sleep to travel, and they're not traveling faster than light, so it's probably taking years to travel.
It was 17 days. It was 17 days.
yeah.
They talk about that actually. Like, how long would it take a rescue crew to get here?
Oh,
And
yeah.
The answer was 17 days. And that was from the time they're overdue. So I do think they have achieved faster than light travel because they're able to get there so fast.
That makes sense.
But Mikey, they don't address it. Your questioning of it is fair. I'm assuming that based upon like dialogue.
17 days, like, I think I could do that. Like, how many shows could you binge watch?
I don't know if you saw what the conditions were, Jen. They didn't have like Netflix and Shudder. Like they
do in the director's cut, Todd. Okay, they just cut those scenes out. They were just binge watching Mad About You.
Jen, did you not forget from the first film that in the Aliens universe, they can have faster than light travel, but all the computers are just the green lines.
Exactly.
And the printers print out. You have to tear the paper off the sides.
Is what it sounds like. All right, so they're all eating and talking about getting laid, and there's a lot of really dated kind of conversation here.
Well, it's about an alien species. This is that conversation because they're talking about he hooked up with one, and they're like, yeah, well, that was the male of the species or whatever.
Yeah,
I missed all of that. All I remember from this scene is the knife stuff.
Yeah, because it's so cool. Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things that I don't love about this movie is like kind of how one note all of the Marines are, and some of them say some pretty problematic stuff. But I give it a pass because it's it's very 80s.
It was 86, yeah.
If you're gonna hang around with a bunch of grunts, self-proclaimed grunts, they're gonna talk. Gallows humor is real, and it's all there. And they joke around because their jobs are terrible.
I also hate Bill Paxton's character in this movie half of the time I see him. Because
How can you hate Bill Paxton's character in this?
Just half of the time. Because half of the time he's a badass Marine who's like throwing shit down. The other half, he is a whiny baby child who's like, get over,
Yeah.
which I thought was hilarious, but it gets annoying real quick.
It does.
It felt like he was playing two different characters to me.
Jen, you heard it here. Todd hates when men be vulnerable.
No, hey.
That's not what it was, Mikey.
Well, because there's very like a lot of like alpha male with him, you know, like he's giving Vasquez a lot of shit, you know, and he just kind of is unlikable in a lot of the stuff he says, or he's whining. But then I think he kind of has a turn later in the movie.
First off, no one can give Vasquez shit. She is unshittable.
Well, I mean, she can give it back, but they're still giving her shit.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Paxton does like, have you been mistaken for a man? And she does not at all look at all like a man. And then her comeback, the whole, no, have you, is a great comeback. I really liked her like ribbing
and you
him
can
back.
just tell that they love her a lot more than him. I'm just saying the whole squad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Like, I just think you can kind of see divisions in the squad, and like they all work together mostly well. But I mean, you can see like these kids are friends and these guys are not friends. You know, and so.
There's
but
no
I
click.
do agree.
At the end of the day, they're like brothers in arms or whatever, brothers and sisters in arms.
Right.
I think it did a pretty decent job capturing a realistic kind of military bond or whatever.
Exactly. And so the vibe of the Marines is not what bothers me. Like, I like that. And I do think you're right. I think it's pretty realistic. It's some of the specific things that they say that bug me. And I think it's just because it's dated, you know. But did you guys recognize the actress who plays Vasquez?
I did not, no.
Her name is Jeanette Goldstein. And she
was the mom in Terminator 2, right?
She's the stepmom in Terminator 2.
What?
Yeah, I know, dude. Yeah.
I had no idea.
They called her a chameleon actress, and I was like, holy shit. But I do want to point this out because I don't want to let it go by, but this is a case of brown face because she is not a Hispanic actress, and she is playing a Hispanic part. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, it's not like super egregious because I do think like, I like seeing a Hispanic character when there's really no reason for one. So there's representation there, but either cast a Hispanic actress or Jeanette Goldstein is Jewish. So they could have made that character Jewish too. So
and also like this is way before people started having those types of conversations.
Exactly.
Which I think is not great. Like we could have been having them back then and we just weren't. But I think it's great we're having them now.
I think so too. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not like, I understand and I am kind of giving it some grace for being an 80s movie. I just wanted to point it out because this is an instance of that. And I don't think, if it was made today, I don't think it would happen. All right, so let's talk about this cool knife thing. Also, the fact that I love Lance Hendricks in this movie.
Okay, so who is that?
Bishop, the android.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's
awesome. He is great. Yeah, I liked him a lot.
But anyways, he's doing this cool knife thing with Bill Paxton's hand.
Yeah.
And it's like the knife thing in the middle of the fingers, and he goes really, really, really fast. And I love Bill Paxton's face during this scene.
His voice is so annoying in these parts.
Oh my God, if I didn't love Bill Paxton from other movies, I would not be able to stand him in this movie.
I mean, he plays a really good most disliked Marine in the troop. I mean, because they held him down and held his hand down, so Bishop did this to them, and everyone else is just cracking up because you can just tell they're like, he's the one that doesn't quite fit in, and they like give him all the shit.
He's the one who's still getting hazed.
Right. Yeah. Well, and apparently I don't know if I'm going to tell this right, but I don't think he knew that his hand was going to be involved in that scene until it was time. Because originally it wasn't supposed to be in his hand, and I don't know why they put it in there. And
probably because they hated him.
I love him and other stuff.
Me too.
And Ripley freaks out because she's like, get that fucking android away from me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. Which, understandable.
I agree. After what happened to her in the first movie, I get it. But Paul Reiser's like, oh my God, I didn't even think about this. We always send a synthetic human on these missions. That's like a normal thing. Sorry, I should have warned you because of what happened.
Right, but I prefer artificial person.
Oh, sorry. So
which I really loved.
Me too.
And I think I actually like Bishop because he's like, oh, what model was that? Yeah, there was some troubles with that model.
Yeah, they were a bit buggy.
Right, yeah. Sometimes they turn out to be evil. Wait, did you have it set on evil? That's the problem.
Because the Bukkake bots 2.0, they don't go evil.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I forgot about that.
I forgot about Bukkake bot. I want to go ahead and apologize to my mother and family for things that I may or may not have said on the Alien episode.
Look, I mean, a lot of shit happened on that episode. Okay.
I just remembered it and I was like, Bukkake bot 2.0, now with less evil.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say I've forgotten what that meant since our last episode.
Jen.
I'm just going to say living in that bliss.
Jen,
You got to Google it.
I'm going to text you something real quick.
No. Oh my God. I'm going to have to burn my phone.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways. Okay.
The movie does a good job throughout the film playing on the fact that we don't quite know if he's good or evil until the very end.
They do a good job of not foreshadowing his revelation of good, right?
Right. Yeah. And when I say like I want more Bishop, like I understand why they did that because he's absent from the story for a long time, so we don't know what he's doing. I just really like him, and I want.
Me too.
Oh yeah, I thought
I
it
want
was
a
a good
Bishop
character.
spinoff. But they also the rest of the crew does not like this Lieutenant Gorman.
He's brand new. He doesn't sit with them, and they can tell he's brand new to the ship, brand new to their unit.
Yeah.
And
hasn't really proved
they don't
himself in
respect him.
battle yet. Yeah. He's kind of very wet behind the ears. And so now they're having their like this is what we're doing meeting, and I love these kinds of meetings. What is it?
It's called a briefing.
Briefing.
It's a briefing.
Yeah.
Welcome to the 8 a.m. This is what we're doing meeting.
Right. Yeah. I said my therapist says in one of our briefings the other day, and I was like, oh, I'm at work. Oh, that's right.
I was like, Jen, that's what we call in the business an overshare.
Exactly. But
listen, there's no shame in going to therapy. Go to therapy. It's
oh,
amazing.
exactly. Yeah. But, okay. So another thing that I'm going to link is an article about how this is kind of inspired by the Vietnam War, because I think there are a lot of elements in this because they're trying to give them information about the xenomorphs. Like this is what they do. This is how you kill them. Their blood is corrosive. It's not that they don't believe Ripley. It's that they're not interested. They're like, fuck, just tell me what to shoot.
Yeah. Tell me where to shoot. Yeah.
Exactly. They even interrupt him when they're trying to give information. And I think this is kind of, they have the firepower. They have the superior firepower. They should logically be able to win this war. But because they don't take the time to understand the enemy is able to subvert them and like take out most of them. And I think that's something we can see in the Vietnam War.
I actually like that because Ripley loses her shit on them for not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And it does get them to pay attention, and then they start respecting Ripley from this point forward. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they still don't quite believe her, though. But yeah.
I don't think they believe her, but they respect her because she stands up for herself.
Right. Yeah. Well, and like the premise of the entire first movie is if they had believed Ripley and put that guy in quarantine, they would have been saved.
Yep.
So Ripley is like, well, fuck, I'm not going to let this happen again, you know?
Right.
She literally says in this scene, listen, one of these things, just one of them killed my entire crew in under 24 hours. And they're like, oh shit. Okay.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
We're not fucking around with like roaches. Like these are smart things that will kill you.
And she doesn't say it like, hey, please
no,
listen.
she's
one
like
of these
yelling
things.
at them. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. Like a substitute teacher who knows that they're not going to have to be there in a week and they can just go ham. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the moments that I do really like Ripley a lot. And I think she's like learned from mistakes of the past movie in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, and I wouldn't buy her being sort of a submissive, quiet person at this point in her life after what she's been through.
Exactly,
No.
yeah.
Especially in these circumstances. Absolutely not.
Right. And I
yeah.
think if she had, that's probably similar to what her life was back on the station before she got involved with this. But now I think when there's like a challenge, she's like, I know what this is and I want to protect all of you guys and protect myself. And this is the right thing to
We're
do.
not fucking around out here, guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is serious shit.
But she's also wandering around. She's saying, I feel like a fifth wheel because we've got this scene of where they're like loading weapons into ships and stuff.
Like, it's the drop ship. Yeah, they're like loading up the
Yeah.
drop ship. And she walks up to Gorman and the sergeant who's been ripped off by Halo. Yeah. What's his name?
Apon or Apone?
Yeah, Apone. Yeah, that's right.
Apone.
It's Apone, yeah. So, like, she's asking, hey, I'm here. I may as well be helpful. She's
Right.
like, what can I do? And then Apone's like, I don't know. What can you do? Which I thought was interesting. Yeah. So I thought that there was some of that in there. And she's like, well, actually, I'm certified to walk a mech warrior suit around. And they're like, all right, cool. Go ahead and strap in and help out. And she does, yeah.
She does. And I wrote in my notes, this is loader porn because it's very...
It's loader shadowing is what it is. But
It is. Hey, and I'm into it. It is really cool.
Me too. I loved these suits, yeah.
I do too.
And I do think these Marines are not expecting anyone to help them. It's usually them taking care of, like, they're like, we're grunts, we take care of this.
Yeah, they're the ones that are ordered to do stuff. They're not used to someone who's helping them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, we didn't talk about this, but Paul Reiser was like, one of the ways he got her out there was like, you should like deal with your demons and come out here and like face your fears or whatever. Like,
fuck you, Paul Reiser.
Right.
Sorry.
I thought it was like a pretty much of a dick move, but I don't think he should have said it outright, but it is like kind of a good metaphor of her like facing the things that have like destroyed her life.
It kind of is, yeah, and like kind of taking
taking control of your life back, maybe.
I
don't know how I feel about it. Even having said that, I'm not sure if I really love that metaphor, but
right. I think the reason it doesn't bother me in the way that Halloween 2018 does is that they ask her to do this to help other people. It's not like she's just waiting around for a threat to happen again, you know? Yeah. And I mean, and that's, I think, kind of like, I don't know if they meant to show kind of a PTSD thing, but I think they do it very well here just because they're showing how a real person would react to this. You know? But yeah, but this is a little, it feels very male gazy. Like, really the only time in this movie where I feel a male gaze is when she's in this loader. Yeah. It just, I don't know.
I also don't think that you were wrong about the male gazy part of it, but I the only part I think you're wrong about that is I think every time she gets into the stasis pod, that's male gaze. I think there's male gaze with Vasquez too. So like I feel like there is some male gaze going on in other parts of the movie. I don't think that you're wrong about this time. I just feel like there's more than just this time.
And I mean, I didn't feel it as much as the first one because I do feel like that scene in her underwear in the first movie is like a really kind of exploitative scene.
Yeah.
And I think when I look at the way women are presented in this movie, it's not necessarily going down by gender lines. I think there are gender stereotypes here. Vasquez and the other female Marine whose name I don't know, I feel like they fall in under the masculine category and Ripley is the feminine category. And I guess that's how they are identified in this movie as either masculine or feminine. So it's not necessarily man and woman, it's masculine and feminine. And that's kind of where I see that male gaze is that Ripley is seen as a feminine person and not really expected to take on these roles. But Vasquez is seen as a masculine person. And so she's just one of the guys. You know, there's a lot of one of the guys kind of thing with Vasquez because she doesn't really have any feminine qualities throughout the movie. If it were a man saying this alien attacked my whole crew, I think they probably would have believed her more, you know, or they would have asked a man to help out or something.
And they wouldn't have been like, well, I mean, if a woman survived, how bad could it be?
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The only way I disagree with you, Jen, is I think they do sort of sexualize Vasquez some. In fact, there's one scene where she says, fuck you to one of the guys, and he goes, anywhere, any place. So I do think that there is some sexualization of Vasquez. I do think it's less than Ripley, but I do think they sexualize her too. And I think it's the guy who I hate the most in this movie. And he's
Boggs?
Oh, that's right. He's Boggs from Shawshank Redemption. You're right. But he wears a hat, like a ball cap, in this scene that has shit hanging off the front of it. That would drive me insane. Who would wear charm bracelets off the front of your hat like that?
He's just committed to that look,
you
know?
So
He's
dumb.
like, I want that party in the front and the back.
I was so happy when he died.
He did bug me in this movie. But he and Vasquez are like real tight. They're like a little clique. You know?
They're best buddies. I don't understand what y'all are talking about.
They are best buds. They're both the heavy machine gunners. Like, I get that. Yeah.
And the other female is the pilot. Like, she's an officer.
Yeah, but the female pilot is wildly irresponsible. But we'll talk in a second about that.
All right, so now they're rolling out and they're getting themselves all amped up to go. Bishop is driving. I just called it the space plane and the space car, so you guys probably know.
But that's accurate, Jen. That is accurate. One's a drop ship and one's like a tank-ish thing, right? But yeah,
bigger Batmobile.
Absolutely, it is.
It's definitely a lot like a Batmobile, but it's
right. And this is when Bill Paxton did kind of bug me because he's just got all these little cliche phrases, and it's very try hard. He's like, "We're in a spaceship, got an elevator going to hell, man."
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us is Bill Paxton from the movie Aliens.
But here's the thing. I don't think any of this was cliche until after this movie. Like, this movie makes all this cliche.
I guess that's fair, yeah.
Right. But there's always some guy on the bus that's like, hey, we're going on a field trip, man. It's going to be rocking. Woo!
And Bill Paxton plays the best person to do that.
He really does. I honestly do buy that the rest of the platoon does not like him very much, but because he does shit like this. So, like, I don't hate Bill Paxton's character. I just find him annoying, and I think I'm supposed to, you know.
Hey, but you know, he's not above being excited. He's not above living every moment. And I mean, there's something I love about that.
Yes.
So,
his name is Hudson in this film.
Yeah.
And then, but I like this though, because it shows how all the Marines react to this drop. Because like Hicks falls asleep because he's like the cool operator. Like he is like the soldier.
He's just tired from being so hot.
Right? Like he's the man. He's a man's man. You know what I'm saying?
He's the guy who should be in charge.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we also find out Lieutenant has not had much combat training right now.
Man, I hated
He's
this.
only done one combat drop.
2, including this one.
I hated this so much because they ask him, how many combat drops have you been on? And he goes, 38 simulated. I mean, I've only done one other. I've done 2, including this one in real life.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's not what we're asking.
I know.
Lieutenant.
I don't care how many simulations. That's like saying, "Hey, Mikey, how many people have you had sex with?" And he's like, "I don't know, 1,000, but like only
Not
2,
your hand.
only 2 in real life." Yeah, sorry. I mean,
Both of those numbers are vastly underestimated.
but still, like, I mean, I don't give a shit how many simulations you did. Like,
Right. And
Right.
it's Ripley who asks him because she's kind of nervous.
Yeah.
And like he's like kind of freaking out and she's like, but she's less nervous than him. So she's like, how many drops have you done? And, and then Vasquez is like, oh shit.
We're fucked. Yeah.
Yeah, all of the Marines are like, oh my God.
Right. And that turns out to be true.
Yeah.
Now, I will say her last sergeant or whatever his position was Tom Skerritt, who can get it.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of drops.
And he
we'll say.
did get it.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
not in the military. He was captain of the ship.
Doesn't matter for drops.
The only drops he did were panty drops.
Ew.
Ooh, Tom Skerritt.
Oh, he's so hot. So now they land and there's a car and they get out and they run and
This movie like revolutionized visual, like the effects, the soundtrack. This movie is like the most well-made science fiction action movie of all time. And we're just like, Jen's like, then they land.
And,
that's because I've seen Terminator 2.
and they roll out in a car.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to talk about it.
There's like
I mean-
crescendoed military music. It's just like basically showing this overwhelming force of them coming down there.
Yeah, it does a good job of setting the scene.
And
Yeah.
they're all badasses because
Yeah.
they end up killing like 100 of these aliens
Yeah.
They
later
are.
on.
And it's good. And I like it. I mean, it's
It's a car. We get it, Jen.
It's an armored personnel carrier.
It is an
Oh,
armored
okay,
personnel
sorry.
carrier, but it looks like a car.
but so they're walking through and they've got these gigantic guns that you have to hold with both hands and like strapped around your waist or something.
They actually look like, if you know what a Steadicam looks like a professional Steadicam. It
Oh,
looks
yeah?
exactly like one of those things. You have it wrapped around your torso, and then it sits on like a pivot arm. I thought that was actually very cool. It looks like they literally took a Steadicam and just put a big machine gun on it. It was very cool.
It's
They duct
so
taped it.
Yeah. I thought it was cool, Mikey. Did you not think it was cool? I'm sick of you talking bad about this movie, Mikey.
I know, Mikey. Jeez, this is a good movie,
I hate
okay?
you guys.
All right. But so they're not seeing any signs of life.
Right.
So here's where I got confused. Why did Ripley go down on the planet if she's like the advisor?
No idea. But so did Paul Reiser. Paul Reiser goes down too.
Yeah.
Well, I know why he went down because he's a greedy little fuck, but he has motivation.
Everyone left the spaceship that is in orbit.
That
Right.
cannot be standard operating procedure.
No, it could not. It seemed insane to me. Yeah, it seemed very risky
Well,
to
yeah,
me.
because there's-
when it turns out to be super risky.
Exactly. And almost
Yeah.
killed them. Yeah.
So they go outside, they find signs of a huge battle in this huge colony, and then
Yes.
then in operations in the med room, they find out they barricaded a section of the colony and like welded everything shut, and there's like explosions and acid everywhere, and they're talking about how, hey, Ripley, they must have killed one of your aliens because there's acid goes all the way through the floor, and they're looking
Yeah.
up, and the Marines are respecting Ripley at this point, but I don't know why Ripley's in there.
Ripley's not in there yet. Because they're clearing the area.
They are.
Ripley's in.
No, but after they clear it, this is what happened. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, but they immediately clear it, and Ripley's like, "Is it secure yet? What the fuck?"
No, it's not at all safe.
Yeah, but she still goes in. Like once they're on the ship, they walk in and there's like the glass, like with the liquid and the facehuggers in it, and it looks like they're all dead. And then Paul Reiser goes over, and I guess the facehugger senses the evil in him and like jump scares
Yeah.
him. And that's the first like scary thing that's really happened in the movie. Other than
really
like,
is,
there's
yeah.
that moment at the beginning where we think the chest burster is going to come out of Ripley.
but the tension is ramping up from the moment they land.
It is. I guess what I'm saying is the tension, the tension building just didn't really work for me. And I think what I wanted here, because I was thinking about Sinister, because there's a lot of instances of Ethan Hawke like walking around his hallway looking for stuff or thinking he heard something, which is basically what they're doing. They're walking around investigating the ship. But in Sinister, like you see a ghost that Ethan Hawke doesn't see, or you see something scary. So there's something for me to look at. But here, I think I'm just following these people not seeing anything super ominous. And I'm just like, okay, how long are we going to keep looking? Like I just wanted a little something more. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying the pacing right here, like, all right, give me something.
Well, I do feel like they give you something with this little like chest, not chest
They
burster,
do.
but the face hugger thing. And then we find out that there's actually 2 that are still left alive.
Yeah. And that they're like reading captain's log or something that they tried to take the face hugger off one of the colonizer people and it killed the person.
Yeah.
Well, they successfully did take it off, but it did kill the person.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess what's your definition of successful there? I mean, they still have Paul Reiser would say it was successful, but I mean
I would say it's successful because it doesn't actually make one of the xenomorph
That's true.
alien things,
And
right?
that's true.
That is a success. It's unfortunate that person died,
Yeah.
but that's still a success.
I mean, I would rather just die than like get that thing burst out of me.
Same.
Yeah.
And you learn that like this colony has been dealing with these aliens studying them for a while, and then something really bad happened. It does a lot of world building and like if you're a fan of Alien, this movie is like your wet dream because there's so much alien world in this movie.
And I do think it's interesting how they build out the world. Like they add to like the creature stuff. Those is one of the things I do really like about it, because I think the facehugger concept is really interesting, and we don't get very much of that in the first movie. And then there's the queen too. So yeah, I think they do a good job of expanding the monster world also. But so they start to motion sense something, and they're pointing a billion guns at whatever it is. And then Ripley looks, and there's a little girl down there.
I did love that their first thought was to, instead of look for survivors at this colonist compound, was to shoot at anything that moves, even if it's a little girl.
I know. I was like,
because they're there to look for
They
survivors.
are.
Like that is what they're doing.
I mean, I would have saw no one there and a big battle and have been like, there's aliens here. We should just shoot at anything that moves.
I get that you're on edge, but you might want to get visual confirmation you're not about to murder an 8-year-old girl.
Right. But I think that kind of plays into the like, we're just bringing a bunch of guns to this problem rather than like trying to
It's the
understand
military, Todd. You can't rescue a colony without killing a few
eggs.
That joke's fucking gold.
But so when they do find who turns out to be Newt, Hudson like sticks his face down in there and is gross and weird, and she bites his hand. I was like, good for you. Yeah. And then she starts crawling away into the air vent, and Ripley goes after her.
Yeah,
and
she follows her. Yeah, and she
Yeah.
finds like a little like compartment where she seems to have been living for a
Right.
while.
Yeah.
Like
surviving.
it's honestly pretty sad.
It really is. Yeah. And like we see that she's a second grader because she's got that little picture. And like
I know,
my
it's so
daughter is
sad.
my daughter's in 3rd grade. So there was a lot of like, I was thinking, oh shit, what would happen? And when they're starting to ask her about her family and she just stops talking about it, I just imagine like what this little girl's been through. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, I would be fine if she was not a factor in this movie. And I've got a lot more thoughts about that later, but
I definitely understand why she's there.
I do too. And I think like when I look at if this movie is a feminist movie or not, I think it is very feminist for its time, which was right after second wave feminism, or kind of the end of second wave feminism. And I don't think it's feminist anymore. Like, I don't feel empowered by this movie. It almost reduces Ripley to mother, like to her gender, because she's a woman. And if you look at
I would have enjoyed this role more if it was a woman in her teens or 20s, like an older woman, and it was more like Ripley fighting for someone not to have to go through what she went through on the Nostradamo.
Yeah, I think so too. Or if she had been saving one of the Marines or something, I think like, and it's fine. Like I'm not going to super pick it apart, but like the first movie, she was written as a man. And one of the things was, I think at this point, being feminist was seen as, oh, I can do anything a man can do, you know, and like trying to like masculinize these characters. And that's kind of what I see in Alien, as she was written as a man and they put a woman in the role. And I think I just want more out of feminism than that now. And so like when you look at slashers, when they pick up the knife, that is seen as like masculinizing the character, and that's how they're able to overcome. And then there's a point where they drop the knife and they are like feminized again. And so I think that's what this movie is like, we had this really strong character in the first movie, but they have to remind us that, hold on, she's still a woman, so she's not as threatening. And it's like giving her this role as a mother. It's like, you can be a great mother even when there's difficult things, not like you're a woman and you can be whatever you want. You know, I just don't think Newt is necessary.
And I feel like they do it less for Ripley and more for the alien queen, to make like a foil for the alien queen.
Well,
so that by the end, I was just like, okay, it's mom versus mom.
Yeah.
They have a moment where they acknowledge that they're both mothers in the egg room. And I was like, this is a really weird choice.
I thought that Newt existed because they wanted to make her a quote-unquote mom, Ripley being the her in that sentence, right? And then it was mom versus alien mom. And I felt like that's why they did it that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely see what you're saying, Jen.
Yeah.
The queen could still be there. She doesn't need Ripley to be a mom to be pissed that her eggs are getting blown apart. You know what I mean?
No.
Right.
Yeah, there's no mom versus mom motivation for me in this movie. I don't need to see the alien see Ripley as a mom either. That doesn't matter. The alien mom would still want to kill Ripley because Ripley is killing her eggs, right?
Right. And like when I look at I think in the 80s, this was probably very progressive because one of the things I do think it shows is different aspects of motherhood and different you can be a mother and that doesn't necessarily mean you're an angel because the alien queen is a mother also. But right now I see it and I'm like, oh, Weyland-Yutani is the patriarchy and he's just pitting these two moms against each other, but he's still controlling everything. Like Weyland-Yutani is the patriarchy in this movie and he is the big evil and these mothers are just fighting with each other. I also think there's a racial element you can see in here.
Can I ask who that is?
Well, sorry, Weyland-Yutani is the corporation that owns everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got you. Sorry.
No,
sorry.
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
And because I don't think we had said it. I got a lot to say once we get to that, but I just think I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And I think it just kind of is feminism at its time. And I think we've moved past that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
But it was probably very progressive at that time. But I can see why now, 20-some+, almost 40 years later, it's not as progressive.
Right. And I say that because I don't want to take anything away from Ripley because there is a lot of empowerment that I get from her. I just think it's empowering me in a way that I don't want anymore. And I read it because one of the other things that I don't like is that Ripley is really the only one in the movie that's asked to care for this child. You know, like she's the one who chases, Hicks at one point is like, she's dead, let's go. And Ripley is the only one who goes in after her and goes to get her, really shows any kind of concern for her, which just shows how caregiving is seen as a female thing. And I just have been thinking so much about teachers who the majority of teachers are women and we're being asked to go into schools now. How many times are teachers asked to risk their lives for kids because we are not valued as highly as male dominated fields. And so this caregiving thing is something that is supposed to be innate to women. We're supposed to be able to risk our lives for it, and we're supposed to want to do that. And I think if any of the male characters in this movie had shown any kind of sympathy for Newt, I think that would have kind of solved that problem.
So Hicks does show sympathy for her, but it's little moments. And if you're paying attention to the movie, like in the background or things like that, you can see that with Hudson and Hicks at different points, but I don't remember the director's cut enough to know if it's more in the forefront during the director's cut. But so there's moments where Newt's trying to see the computer table and Hicks picks her up and puts it on his shoulder so she can pay attention to what they're all talking about with their briefing that they do later on in operations. And he checks on her a lot and does some other things. And then Hudson as well with her. But it's all in the background. So Paul Reiser's character's talking and you can see Hudson and her interacting in the background in sweet supportive ways. Hicks as well in different scenes throughout the movie, but it's not in the forefront.
Well, and so I found another quote about that too, because I think that fits into the 80s. And there's a guy who wrote about this called Roger Lockhurst. He wrote a book about the first two. And he said aliens would be a defiantly Reaganite version of the story, pumped, militarized, libertarian, and driven by a staunch defense of the nuclear family. And so the way I see Hicks relating to Newt and kind of the other men is more like a father, which now, I look at Corey and he is willing to do everything that I do for our children. But I think back then there was this sense of I grew up with a dad who's no, I don't change diapers because I'm the dad. Men do that.
You mean women do that?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Women do that. That's not for me to do. So that's kind of what I read here, which kind of rubs me the wrong way, is that it just looks like there is a nuclear family at the end. There's Ripley, there's Hicks, and there's Newt. And yes,
and
Hicks,
Uncle Bishop.
And Uncle Bishop, yeah, sorry. And while Hicks and Bishop do things that benefit Newt, Ripley is the one that is constantly risking her life for Newt. And I just wish I saw more of that. And so that's kind of another element of how it just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
It does rub me the wrong way. And it's chosen to be like that because they injure Hicks so he can't do it at the end, or I think he would go do it 100%.
And I did like that Hicks was not the one who rescued her, but I wish that she had been rescuing Hicks. Like if Newt wasn't a character, she could have rescued Hicks, and I think I would have liked it better.
Vasquez, or any character, anybody.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't. I don't think who she rescues matters.
Right.
Yes.
Except when it's a child, because I think that's inserting the motherhood thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, I think the character of Newt sets back the character of Ripley so much.
And it's like implied that now she has a reason for living now. Now she's happy.
Yeah,
again.
now she has an actual reason to be on the planet.
Right.
See, in my headcanon, her whole reason is I've come to murder all the aliens. That's my reason for living.
And I would be okay with that, you know?
I
And
like
so-
that. I like that reading of her way better.
And so, like, when I look at this, because again, I don't want to take anything away from Ripley or from this movie, because I feel like this is a step along the way of how we're presenting women in films. And I think this is an important one. And I'm actually going to link two kind of competing views of how feminist this movie actually is. But I just wanted to mention that. And like when you look at Terminator 2, and I'm sorry I keep comparing it, but there's just so much in common. Like you see Linda Hamilton struggling with these concepts, and I think it's more developed in that movie, but I think the seeds of it are here. But anyways.
I would have much rather had no Newt and like a love story-esque of Hicks and Ripley of like, we respect each other because we have a mutual love of murdering aliens.
Yeah, I don't even need like a quote unquote love story where they fall in love, but it would have been cool if they were just there to kick alien ass, right? And then you could even have like Hickson like sort of sacrifice himself for Ripley to get Ripley to safety or whatever, and then him get taken, and then have Ripley go save him.
Yeah,
and that would have been awesome.
I would have loved it. Yeah,
because then you sort of have both of the males sacrificing himself for
But then he has to sleep with her because of the implication.
What are they on a boat? No, I think it would be
ship, Todd.
That's fair. That's fair. But I think it would be cool to then have her save him and then them get away. Right.
Yeah, that's what I wanted from the end. Now that all of that said, I do like her and Newt together. Getting past the fact that I don't like it as part of the plot, I think it's done pretty well.
I think so too.
Now that we've had all these serious talks, we can like get into like the movie.
The action.
Yeah.
Okay, because like all that stuff's really bad, but like let's talk about alien murder fight war stuff. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Well,
welcome back to Alien Murder Fight War Stuff. that sounds like the worst like game show ever.
So Hudson says that he found all of the colonists because helpfully they put little trackers on all of the colonists. And they say, yeah, let's go get them. They don't see anything weird about this, that like this colony is destroyed. Oh, they must be having a big meeting or something.
Yeah, they're having a big town hall, I think one of them says.
Right.
Like,
I think they're joking.
No,
I think they're obviously
they're
like,
not.
this is all really bad.
Yeah.
So they're now going to where the colonists are supposed to be, and they go inside, and there's like this big gross black stuff on the ceiling.
Pause. Okay. This movie does a really great job visually showing where things are. So you have the colony town, which looks like a bunch of buildings connected.
Yeah.
And then like 4 miles away, you have like the reactor that does the atmosphere stuff. And it doesn't.
And they had to drive over there. Yeah.
They have to drive over. But this movie does a really good job of showing you, like, you have a really good spatial awareness of this movie, what's going on this planet, which I thought a lot of directors don't do very well. And this one does it really well.
I saw it as, oh, they're in the space car now going somewhere, just because I'm not the most visual person. But yeah, I mean, I could tell they were in different places.
They're in the Space Corvette.
They get the armored APC and they drive to the reactor where they change the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, this is serious science fiction. Okay, can you pay attention? I like how Newt was like, you're all gonna die. Like, this is a terrible idea. Let's just leave.
Well, okay, and so we kind of skipped over the scene where she and Ripley are talking, but she says, like, don't you think you're safer with us? And Newt's like, no. I saw them kill a bunch of people like you. Yeah, which
I've hung out with adults before, and have you noticed that there aren't any around? I watched all of them die.
Right, because he said it's like 60 or 70 families. Like, that's a lot of people.
I think they say 157 people, something like that. Yeah, it's an insane number of people.
Well, so they get down to, there's a bunch of secreted resin, and everybody's just wandering around. And then Ripley's like, hey, aren't they on top of a big bomb thing?
Well, they're on top of a nuclear reactor, or technically inside one, because the nuclear reactor is what powers the terraforming facility facility, right?
Yeah,
Mikey,
yeah.
you're the sci-fi nerd.
It's
Yeah.
what makes time travel possible.
Yeah. It's basically, they're like, because in the first movie, this was like a moon rock. Apparently, they have just added an atmosphere due to this machine.
Yeah, that big
Yes.
thing that Weyland-Yutani produces. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, mass produces.
Yeah.
They call it the shake and bake terraforming
They
machine
do.
or whatever.
Yeah. You won't
Yeah.
believe how terrific it is.
Oh, wow. It's shake and bake, and I helped.
I really do like that this movie sets up that this is just some shitty backwater, and like the universe of that world is just huge.
Yeah.
And like, because the Marines are all like, time to go save some shitty colony again. Like they do it
I just
all
wanna
the
get,
time.
Yeah, I just want to get off this duty. Sorry.
Are you laughing because you
but-
said duty?
Yes, she is.
Really? You're an adult
I
woman.
know, man. I can't help it. Like Ripley, being a mom is not the only thing about me, okay? But so here's the thing that bugged me, because yes, it's legitimate that you wouldn't want to shoot a bunch of grenades on top of a big thermonuclear reactor. And if Lieutenant Wet Behind the Ears had just told Apone that, maybe everybody
Yes.
would have been mad about having to give up all their ammo, and maybe they would have actually done
Yeah.
that. And I think that goes back into like, it's just guns, and the grunts on the ground don't need to know what's going on. Just follow my orders, you know?
But that's how they treat them in the military a lot of the times.
Yeah.
They are pissed because Apone has to collect all their magazines,
Right.
although some of them keep them.
Uh-huh.
And they have to use just their flamethrowers
Right.
while they're down
Yeah.
there.
Or Hicks brought his own shotgun, which I thought was a really cool touch.
So, and this is the point in the movie where I wrote, is anything ever going to happen? Because I was so tired of them just wandering around. I was like, where are the fucking aliens?
Jen. I cannot. I just can't. I can't even do this.
But Jen, we're about to get there.
We
And
are.
don't you love the alien reveal? Like, I loved the alien
I do
reveal
too,
right here.
yeah.
I thought it was so cool because they're walking and like that place that you were covered in resin, like you were talking about, Jen.
Uh-huh.
And they're walking and walking and walking. And then they start to see.
bodies. They see bodies.
Yeah. And they see an open egg and they see skeletons.
Oh, and one of the bodies like wakes up and it's like, kill me,
Uh-huh.
kill me, mother.
And then a thing bursts out of her chest and they flamethrower.
Yeah, they flamethrower it, and then
Yeah.
that's when you see the aliens literally like peeling off of the walls. I thought that was so cool.
I think
I
so
thought this
too.
does a great job of like the stakes
Yeah.
of this movie, because like the first movie is one little alien
Yeah.
that bursts out of a guy's chest. They killed that thing in 2 seconds, and then you see hundreds of these aliens, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh man, I watched the first movie. These people are screwed.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like the first movie was Alien,
Right.
And this movie's called Aliens,
And that's what brings in the money, baby. Dollar sign.
that dollar sign.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think that they immediately up the stakes like that by just taking out the threat that killed the entire first
Yes.
movie. Yeah. And I love how the aliens come out. I think it's so
Yeah,
cool.
it looks
So
so,
cool.
cool. And then and the Marines start. It's like it's a gun battle, and
Yeah.
then I thought it did a good job showing that the Marines are also not like pushovers. They kill a lot of the aliens. They kill
do.
a lot of
They
aliens
do.
here.
They're badasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of the, because I think at this point, Boggs like shoots an alien and it explodes and the blood gets on him and starts like burning him. And I can't remember if
Yeah.
it's Boggs or not. It's somebody. This is one of the moments where I was having a hard time keeping track of everything that was happening.
Oh,
because
it's
just
chaos.
Shit
And
getting
it
fucked
cuts-
up.
Yeah.
It cuts to the lieutenant back in the APC watching their video, and he's like, "Oh, guys, are you okay?" And it's like people are dying left and right. There's gunfire and flames, and you're like,
Yeah.
"No, they're not. They're
And
not
This
okay."
wasn't in my
And
simulation.
I was just gonna say that's the difference
hated
between a
him.
simulation and reality, because he's giving Apon,
Yeah.
probably he's giving Apon the, I hope we're saying his name right, like the right commands. But if shit's going crazy and he can't hear, it doesn't matter what the lieutenant is saying.
Yeah, I doubt in the Aliens universe they have a Kobayashi Maru type situation.
Exactly.
So all of their simulations go exactly the way they're supposed to, and this guy is not prepared for what he's being asked to do.
And then Ripley's like, "You got to pull your team out. They're gonna die. They're all gonna die. Just get them out
Right.
of there. Get them out of there. Get them out of there."
but he doesn't, and then she eventually like gets on the
Yeah,
horn
yeah.
or whatever, and is like, "Get out of there, you
Yeah,
idiot!"
she gets on the
I love
blower and
that.
she's like, there are
Yeah.
aliens there, not just
well,
one
then she
this
hijacks the
time."
car.
She does, yeah.
"Oh shit, yeah, she does. That's right."
She's a badass, man. And she like
She
throws
is,
the
yeah.
lieutenant out of the driver's seat and grabs the controls and is like, "I'm gonna go get him then."
Right.
And then Paul Paul Reiser, to his credit, is like, you had your chance, Gorman. That's what he says to him.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
she essentially takes control of everything at this point. Although technically Hicks does, but she's really running the show.
Yeah, it really is her.
And so she gets them, they like run out and they all get into the big car. And she's driving away, but apparently she's like done something to the car. So she's driving on metal and there's a xenomorph on top and it's a pretty cool car chase scene.
So she takes the APC and she drives through the alien made wall of like the resin and stuff. And it's like, and like Hicks is like, oh, there's the APC. And like the survivors get on.
Well, and then an alien, as they're trying to close the door, an alien like tries to like keep it open, and then Hicks sticks his shotgun in the alien mouth and says, "Eat this," and then blows his head off. I was like, "Yeah,
which is so cool."
Yeah,
it is so cool. I love it.
But then he gets acid blood on him too.
He does,
Yeah, and so he starts to get burny a little bit.
Actually, it gets on Hudson.
Oh, Hicks is the one that shotguns him. I only have eyes for Ripley, so like a lot of these Marines, I kind of kept losing track of who was doing what.
And it all happens sort of quickly.
It does.
Like, there's a lot of chaos. It was hard for me to keep track of who died until later in the movie when you see, okay, these people aren't here
exactly,
anymore. Right? Yeah.
Well, and so now she's driving the space car away, and there's a xenomorph on top, and he's like smashing through the window, and she like runs over it and is awesome. Michael Biehn comes over and says, he's down, you fucked the car up.
I think he got back in that APC, saw that she was the one that rescued them, and like she's in control and was like, oh, we are really in trouble. I've got to like, okay, let's stop the car. I need to take control of this situation because
I read that as like her PTSD was taking over and he needed to calm her down. Yeah.
I think so too. But I also wrote, are you sure they're far enough away? Because it didn't seem like they've been driving very far. And I was like,
I think
until they're back in orbit, they're not far enough away.
I know, yeah.
Also during this scene, boxes fall on the lieutenant and he loses consciousness for the next like 20 minutes.
Which is fine.
Yeah, he gets a concussion or whatever. Yeah, but we don't need him.
We don't.
Exactly, Jen. We don't need him, so it's fine.
So like Hicks is in command because the sergeant's lost.
Yeah, they're inside the car deciding what to do next, and Ripley's like, the only thing left to do is to go to orbit and nuke this place.
It's the only way to be sure. And that's such a great scene. And then Paul Reiser's like, oh, no, this is like a really expensive colony or whatever.
This is like millions of dollars you're saying you're going to nuke.
Right.
And then I love Bill Paxton because he's like, yes, to what Ripley says. He's like, sold. Let's do that.
Right.
And then Ripley's like, she's really smart. And that's the thing. Old Ripley is through, like, the first movie Ripley is through this movie, but like, I just don't like the changes they made because she's like, well, technically this is a military operation. And since the lieutenant's unconscious and the sergeant is dead, Corporal Hicks is in command, right? Corporal Hicks? And he's like, yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's like,
yeah, I am in charge. Let's nuke this bitch.
And then he goes over to Ripley and he's like, what should I do, Ripley? I really don't know. And I know you're the one who should really be in charge.
Well, I mean, but he does exactly what she suggests. Yeah. I mean, I think he knows what's best.
I think so, too.
And that is to listen to Ripley.
I mean, what would Ripley do, you know?
Yeah, WWRD, baby.
But Paul Reiser does say something at this point that I do think is interesting. He says, this is a species, and do we have the right to just exterminate an entire species? And I think they could have dug in a little bit more to that. I'm okay that they didn't. But what bugged me about it is it's one of those assholes who's using this like legitimate concern of should we exterminate a species to his own end, because he doesn't give a fuck about those xenomorphs. He just wants the money. So he's faking that concern. It's like a gaslighting thing. It's like, don't you care about the xenomorphs? You can't just blow them up, you know?
But to everyone's credit, they're like, no, that species is the worst. Let's go ahead and exterminate them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would have just said they were found in a spaceship, so they obviously have a different home. We wouldn't be killing all of them, but we need to get the fuck out of here.
Right.
This is not where they're from, so we're going to kill this colony of them like they killed our colony.
Right.
We're going to call it Even Stevens and then GTF back to Earth.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this is when I started not liking Paul Reiser.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't like him earlier than this because, you know, I'm #feminist and I can see through that shit. But Jen, I understand how you would fall for it.
It's the sweater. It's the knot. Did you see that knot?
He tied it so tight, Jen. But anyway, so like he wants to sell one of these aliens or like
to the bioweapons division.
Yeah, to the bioweapons division because he wants money. Like he does not care about the species at all.
But this is when we start seeing the beginnings of Ripley and Hicks is kind of like, I wrote when he says, yeah, we should nuke him for orbit. I wrote, then he and Ripley have a couple seconds of I plan sex because they look at each other and they're like, yeah, that's a good plan. Yeah, you know.
Oh, yeah. You want to nuke it, Ripley?
Yeah.
Well, there's some people you naturally work well with, and there's a good connection there.
That's true.
Yeah,
and hey,
listen,
and I like
get
it. And you see a little bit of that with Tom Skerritt in the first one because there's never like any implication of romance, but there's the chemistry there.
I feel like the chemistry is like really between her and Hicks. Like they have good chemistry in this movie.
I think so too.
Like,
and I think a lot of it is just Hicks is taking her seriously and listening to what she's saying. And she likes that, But yeah, I mean, that would have been hot if they had hooked up.
So Hicks is like, she's right. So he gets on the radio and is like, hey, spaceship, come pick us up. This place is not going great.
Right.
Yeah.
And so spaceship dude is like, oh, this ladder seems normal, except my foot got stuck.
That was my whole thing. I'm like, they're aliens on this rock. Like, no one is not aware of what's going on.
Close the fucking ladder.
Right?
Yeah, it's insane. Also, I'll say this. Both of those people, both the pilots are wildly unprepared for what they need to be doing. Because when they originally come down to the dropship, the pilot is wearing big fucking aviators, like Top Gun style aviators, and it's dark. Why are you wearing sunglasses at night? You are not Corey Hart. You are flying a dropship.
But those are future Ray-Bans, and they actually shoot actual rays in different bandwidths, so she can actually see more with them on.
I want to see that.
That is the only way it makes sense. That is the only way it makes sense, Mikey, and I am on board for that. Anyway, so what they do is they leave their back door of the ship open the whole time.
Don't want to do that, guys.
No, you never leave your back door open because what's going to happen?
Would you say they dropped the ship?
The guy was like outside camping or something. I was like, what are you doing?
What was he? Yeah, I have no idea what he was doing, but him being gone allowed the alien to like sneak in ninja style.
Right.
And then as they're starting to take off, you see an alien like small face inside bigger face punch the pilot,
right.
And then you just see the plane crash or the dropship crash.
Right. Clever girl. So she took out the saving vehicle also. And so now they're stuck, guys. And it's game over, man. Game over.
Granted, I would kind of panic too if I was in that situation. I mean, like, I think a
would
game
too.
over moment is okay.
He panics to a point where I wanted a airplane style montage of people walking up and smacking him, trying to get him to calm down, and then it just like zooming out to show a bunch of other people waiting in line to smack him.
Ripley gives him that in like 5 minutes.
That's true. Now, and I will say, like, we just made fun of it, but that game over thing, that is an iconic part of this movie, too. And I am grateful that it exists because it is funny. And it was improvised, apparently, too.
I still don't understand why there's not people. Is it really improvised?
Yeah.
Man, he's a genius.
Wow.
He is a great actor. He was a great actor. God rest his soul.
I do love Bill Paxton.
Same.
If there's nuclear weapons on the ship, another drop ship, you think there'd be like 3 people up there maybe like, we can't just leave nukes unattended.
Right. Well, it's because Corman was in charge, and he's no Tom Skerritt.
That's true.
He's the worst. I hate him. But yeah, there's literally no one on the ship in orbit. And now the drop ship with both the pilots has blown up. So they're both dead and the drop ship is not operable.
Right. And we find out it's going to take 17 days for, this is when they say 17 days for somebody to rescue us once we're noticed that we're gone.
Right. They go back to the colony and like hunker down more or less. And they're talking about, okay, so if we miss our rendezvous point, how long will it take someone to get here to rescue us? And from today to missing the rendezvous point to rescue mission, that's 17 days.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so they're like, let's reseal the barricade. Let's like they go to the place that the colonists had their last stand. They're like, we can reseal this up and wait 17 days.
Yeah.
And then Bill Paxton's freaking out again, and Ripley's like, Bill Paxton, oh, look, Hudson, I'm tired of your bullshit. Make yourself useful. Go get the plans of this place, and because you need to be helpful, and we're tired of your bullshit. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's okay. He takes the criticism pretty well.
He does, yeah. And I do think he has an interesting transformation in this movie because once the shit starts going down, you see that there's a vulnerability to him, and that a lot of his annoying stuff at the beginning was kind of like a bravado, kind of like trying to fit in thing. And so I do like his character as much as he does kind of bug me. But so they're trying to like seal off so that there's no way these xenomorphs can get in.
Yeah, they're just trying to like seal off any way for the xenomorphs to get in, as long as it's not underneath them or above them.
Which this stuff is what I've hated the most since a kid, was they not checking the air vents part of this whole it is because they thoroughly go through the plans. Thoroughly. And the fact that they missed such a big part of this is so dumb.
See, and that's why whenever I play Halo, my first move is to just look straight up and then just scan everything, and I just haven't figured
out. And not because
I panicked and hit all the buttons at once. Right.
Right.
It's because I'm smart.
I do like that there is a air vent that can conservatively fit 20 aliens and they never think to hunker that down.
It's because they haven't seen Jurassic Park, guys. Okay.
Clever girl.
But so before that happens, Ripley puts Newt into a room with the bed and tucks her in, and they have a conversation about scary dreams and are monsters real. And she gives her this tracking bracelet that Hicks just gave her, and I guess she's mad because it didn't mean they were engaged. So she's like, okay, here, take it.
That was a really good joke. Yeah.
I thought it was a weird moment, but also sweet because I think like they do have chemistry and it was kind of cute, you know?
And I thought it was in a play of like traditional roles because he's like, give this and I can always keep track of you. And she's like, what are we engaged now? I don't need this. I mean, it was a good like slap back to him being like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But I still want to know what you are.
He's the one who says like it doesn't mean we're engaged or anything.
No.
But I also think it's like, yeah, we're going to hook up when this thing is over. But we got to focus on the problem right now.
We got to get done. But yeah, Seth.
Exactly. But she gives the bracelet to Newt for luck, it's not a lucky bracelet.
That's just what she tells Newt so Newt will wear it because she wants to be able to track Newt,
I guess
right?
You're right.
But how upset would you be if you gave your tracker bracelet to a woman you're really like interested in and like you go track it down and it's like a 10-year-old girl?
I
You're
know.
like, this night's not going to go how I wanted it to go.
Definitely shouldn't.
Yeah.
And even after he stood on the cafeteria tables and saying, I think I love you to her,
I know.
and you're not supposed to do it, and then he gets super hazed for it. Yeah, not cool.
Yeah, so embarrassing.
Right.
Definitely know what you guys are talking about.
It's from Scream 2.
Scream 2 is terrible, though.
What?
Well, guys, that was the horror version. We'll see you.
Oh.
Bishop is looking at the face huggers.
He's what's the thing? Dissecting it.
And so he's figuring out, like, kind of what we learned from the last movie, that they're using these colonists as, like, incubators for these things. And that's what's in the nest.
Yeah.
And Ripley tells him to destroy them.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I'm under orders not to destroy them from Burke.
And she's like, oh, fascinating. Who? And so then Bishop, and that's one of the things I love about Bishop being AI is he just like spills the beans for everything because he's like,
yeah, he just answers
I'm a
her.
robot.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And so then she's like, Burke, you got some explaining to do. And so he's like, yeah, let's just do this because we'll be set up as heroes and we'll have money for life. So that's his motivation. Like he can spin it as like, we want to study these things. I want to know, but he just wants to be rich by getting these things and like giving them to the company.
I feel like Burke's character doesn't super work in this movie because shit gets so bad and his life is in danger and he's still trying to like smuggle them out, which I just don't think is really realistic because like they're like at this point, there's no way even off the planet. And he's like, I'm going to set them up to be impregnated.
Well, what I don't think is realistic is that, like, once they find all of this stuff out, they don't do anything about it. They just keep letting him tag along, and they don't, like, try to restrain him or try to, like...
After he tries to... I mean, because this part's pretty bad, and he's like, okay, well, because he lies to her and is like, yeah, that was before, now it's all bad.
Right.
Then he tries to trick them into getting impregnated.
Right.
Then Hicks decides...
He doesn't trick them. He, like, sets them up to get impregnated.
I'm sorry.
Like,
tries to murder them.
Yeah, he tries to murder them, yeah.
But then they were going to shoot him in the head when the power went out, when the aliens attack.
Right.
But we'll get there, yeah.
But I'm just saying, they make the decision to shoot him at that moment.
Burke is trying to explain himself, and we're finding out he sent all of these colonists here knowing this shit was going to happen, which I think is another parallel to kind of the Vietnam War, is that they were sending all of these troops into this dangerous situation to justify their ends back at home without really giving a fuck about what was going to happen to these human beings.
They sent the colonists a long time ago, and they didn't know the ship was there. When she woke up and told them about the ship, that's when Burke told them to go.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
but he did that knowing that there was an alien creature there and that this is a way he could harvest that alien. Yeah.
Right.
Now we know that there's a bomb on the moon rock or something, and it's going to blow up in 40 hours.
It's the reactor is overloading, Jeff.
Yeah, no.
I thought you just can't go over 55 miles an hour in the space car or something.
Bishop calls them over to look at the reactor. Like, what are we looking at? And then it vents, and he's like, well, all those explosions are making the reactor overheat. We have 4 hours until this place is within 30 miles. 30 kilometers is a thermonuclear eruption. And then Bill Pax is like, great.
Right. Yeah, but so Bishop says, okay, but I can go and I can like manually try to get the ship that we just left like floating around to try to get back and save everyone. And he goes through like a Shawshank Redemption tunnel and says like, okay, it's going to take this much time, but we have this much time, but it's going to stay tight.
So here's where their plan breaks down for me, because they're like, okay, so he can go crawl to the satellite and then get the thing to come down, and it's going to be a skin of the teeth. And they're like, well, good luck with that. And they let him go do it by himself. Wouldn't the whole group just go try to do that and like wait for the ship? Like, why would we do anything else?
The problem with that, Mikey, and I do agree, it is like super like long range, like Hail Mary type play, right? But if they all go outside, they're all going to get attacked by aliens. And honestly, he's sort of expendable because he's not a real life form.
But
right?
if he dies, there's no way they're going to live.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, well, they could just get in the car and drive kilometers away, but they're still dead, right? Like, they're not going to be able to leave. Like, yeah. I get what you're saying. I also do love that they make him climb through the tight tunnel when he could just go through the air vent and it's big enough he could run all the way there.
Because like 20 xenomorphs are already up there, yeah.
He's outside of the building like miles away or whatever.
And so now Hicks is showing Ripley how to use all of his guns, and they're having some cute little moments. And he's like, you better go get some sleep.
The tension is palpable. Yeah.
It's sweet. I like it. Yeah. And Michael Biehn is hot.
But Jen, he really is like, let me show you how to use my gun.
Yeah.
No, she brings it up.
Oh, I didn't realize it was her idea. How rare is that? Right, Mikey?
Speak for yourself.
Oh.
But so now she's got a grenade launcher. The lieutenant is back awake. He hit his head and he's trying to apologize or something. And then she remembers that Newt exists and she put her to bed a while ago. And then what?
She's like, oh shit, I have a daughter now.
Exactly.
Let's talk about that. The lieutenant's concussion has made him a better person.
Yeah.
I mean,
from this point forward, he's a really good soldier.
He is. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is because he understands like there are actual stakes to this. And maybe I'm not the best person to lead. I do think this movie makes a really good argument for women in power and female leadership. All right. So anyway, so Newt's asleep, but not in bed. She's asleep under the bed, which I thought was sweet.
Yeah.
And so Ripley goes down and like goes to sleep or falls asleep right next to her too. And now Bishop is at the satellite, so he's trying to get the plane to come get them. And then Ripley wakes up. And this part, I think this probably is my favorite part. Well, this part is the scariest, super creepy. Yeah.
This is the scariest part.
The scariest part for me, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I agree. It is very effectively scary.
When I was a kid and I would watch this movie, like, this is the part that I would like close my eye. I just wouldn't watch this part because it was just really scary.
It's so scary.
Yeah, it was scary last night when I was watching
it.
Because they look like spiders.
They do. They're so gross. But so the facehugger jar has been smashed. And I didn't put that Burke had done that together at this point. I was like, oh shit, they're just trapped in this room.
You don't know that he's done that until later in the scene when she's like waving at the camera and he turns the camera on.
And then you're like,
I was like, ooh, you evil, you evil man.
Yeah, I wrote on all caps, fuck you, Paul Reiser.
I don't care how tight your sweater is.
I know, man. Helen Hunt can keep you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was real mad about it.
Oh, wow.
You found the joke, Jen.
All right, but it's terrifying because there's two of them in here and they can't get them, nobody can see them or hear them. And so she's banging on the glass and the thing is crawling over and it like jumps onto her face. And so she turns the fire alarm on and that's what alerts Michael Biehn that his soon-to-be girlfriend is in trouble.
So smart of her.
It really is,
also, let's talk about these effects because these are all practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
And these things look real and they look really scary and they make weird noises and it's just so creepy and scary.
Yeah, this was wires and puppetry is how they did this.
That's so impressive,
I know.
Man. It really is.
I'm going to link an article that gives a little more details about that. But yeah, these effects look really good. And this is the facehugger, I think, is scarier to me than the xenomorph. And so
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I'm glad we see more of that in this movie, you know, because we really don't see much of it in the first one. But it's on her face and it's wrapped, it's like tail thing around her neck. And then Michael Bihn's there.
You see the thing like coming out from under it, you know, like if the bottom of the facehugger was your hand, it would be like right in the middle of your palm.
Right.
It's like sticking its like thing out, trying to like put it in her mouth.
It's penis.
It's proboscis.
I didn't want to say it, Mikey, but yeah, the phallus that's trying to penetrate her mouth. I hate everything about this sentence.
Well, hold on. No, it's putting eggs in there.
It's gross, and I don't want it in my mouth. I'll just say that.
Right. I'm sure you said it more than once, but like, listen. I like hated this part so much because it was so gross.
And then I have a thing with like parasites and creatures like that where like I get chills like talking about it. Like I don't like.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Because here's the grossest thing. Newt is watching all of this happen to Ripley and there's one of them right behind her too.
Well, Newt's sort of a little badass too because when that one crawls up, she knows that they have a tail, so she pushes that thing against the wall to pin it there.
Yep.
That's when they sort of break the glass, and then Hicks jumps through the glass and like gets up and shoots that one, and then runs over, and they all start trying to like untangle the cord around Ripley's neck. Yeah,
and it's like they pry it off her face or away from her face, but they still can't get it out because it's like choking her. It's just terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and then we find out, and they throw it, and they shoot the things a million times, so coast is clear now.
Yeah.
But
both of those little face huggers that were in the canisters or whatever are now dead.
Right. And this is when they have the conversation about Burke locking them both in there.
And I love this conversation because Ripley figured out his plan from the jump and was like, here's Burke's plan. He was going to have us be impregnated, smuggle us past customs. That way he wouldn't have to explain anything. He would take credit for it and get it all through. And then the Marines are like, well, we would all know that you guys, and he'd like, well, the Marines were like, we would know that what happened to y'all, so that wouldn't work. And she's like,
oh no, he was going to kill you guys.
Your freezers would malfunction. And like Hudson's like, oh no, man. And so like, let's just put and everybody's like, just put a bullet in him. And then Hicks finally is like, yeah, okay, let's just put a bullet in him. And like, that's the decision they make. Shoot him. And they lose power right then.
Yeah. And this is when she says you don't see, they're talking about a species, because I think he's still trying to pull that bullshit of like, this is a species and we want to study it. And she's like, you don't see them fucking each other over for a percentage. And I'm going to link something because I read an article comparing this to Avatar and the way James Cameron treats like other species that I think is pretty interesting, because they're seeing this species as creatures and like bugs that they're trying to squash.
I think it was the sentence that says Ripley doesn't think these things are evil. They're just a different species. She thinks Paul Reiser is evil.
Yes, because Paul Reiser doesn't care about the species either.
Right.
He just wants to make money from it. Yeah.
He doesn't even really care about his own species.
No, he doesn't.
That's why I think, it's just he's evil.
Yeah. All right, so now the power goes out, and they sense motion stuff in the hallway. And I liked this because they're all looking at the door, and they're like, okay, well, if it's 8 feet, like that door's 8 feet away, and then it starts to keep getting closer, and it's like they're inside the perimeter, and that creeped me out a little bit. And there's movement all over the place, and then they realize that they forgot that the ceiling exists.
It literally is like one of them goes, oh no, drop ceilings exist.
Right.
And then they like push up the drop ceiling and then turn the light around. And I hated this so much because it was so creepy.
Right.
Because then you see like 8 xenomorphs like crawling towards them.
Right.
Okay, if I could redo this movie, because they're an intelligent species, because they cut the power. An easier way that would have been more terrifying is if they murdered one of their own on the door and the acid melted the doorway for them to get in.
Oh my God, I love that. That's dirty.
But I think they care about each other. I don't think they would do that to Zini.
They're not Paul Reiser.
Exactly, yeah.
No, I mean, I think they would.
George!
I think that would be terrifying, though.
I do think so, too, But that would present them in a much more sinister light.
So the xenomorphs are now there. They're fighting. Everyone's shooting. And honestly, they're holding their own. They're doing pretty well.
They are.
But Paul Reiser sneaks out the back door and then locks that back door. So Vasquez has to literally like torch it open, right? So she's torching it open and they're like falling back. And this is when Bill Paxton is like really coming to his own as an awesome badass Marine guy. And he is like taking him out. He's like, come on, you want some of this or whatever? And then eventually one of them does grab him sort of through the floor. And that's when Hicks tries to save him, but he gets sucked down. And then Vasquez does get the door open and they go in behind where Paul Reiser went. And we know that Paul Reiser went through another door.
And he locked it behind him.
Yeah, and he locked that other door behind him. And then he's trying to go through another door and he opens it. And then he sees a xenomorph there and it's like, give me a kiss.
Exactly. And then Karma gets him.
Yeah, and then he dies. Or we don't see him die. Honestly, he might come back in Aliens 3.
No, because
I have no idea. But
spoiler alert, though, also the planet blows up, at the end there.
Oh, that's true.
Ooh, good call. Yeah, good point. So that makes sense. So anyway, Reiser's dead anyway.
Yeah.
But so the rest of our little Scooby gang can't get through the other door fast enough. And the girl Newt is like, follow me, I know how to get out of here. And she crawls into one of the vents.
Yeah.
But now the firefight goes into the vent.
Which is such a cool scene.
It's very cool. Dude, Vasquez is awesome.
She really is.
Because she's like squatting down, sort of running away, but also like shooting all of the xenomorphs that are attacking them. And so Gorman's doing okay too, but it's really Vasquez holding her own
It
here.
is, and Gorman's kind of supporting, but yeah.
Yeah, and then she runs out of ammunition in her rifle, so she switches over to her pistol, and then she sort of gets to the point where her and Gorman get overtaken.
Yeah.
An alien comes from atop. She shoots the alien in the head with her pistol. She gets acid on her ankle and is trying to like drag. And so Gorman goes back for her, but then they get surrounded.
Yeah, and then they set off a grenade in their hand.
Yeah,
And
they
then-
have that
and
little
then-
moment of looking at each other, and it's
But first,
You were always an asshole, Gorman.
Yeah.
but that was a good send off for them.
it is, and that's
It really was.
And that's
yeah.
one of the most memorable scenes of this movie too. Like
Oh,
I hear
yeah.
a lot of people talking about that, and it's kind of like she's forgiving him for getting everyone killed and being terrible. But so now there's like rumbling explosion when Vasquez sets off that grenade, and so Newt falls through some kind of fan thing, and Ripley and Hicks are trying to catch her, but she falls down into the vent and she goes down in water. And they're trying to find her, and she's got her tracker on, so they know where she is. And this is one of my favorite parts of the movie too, when she's in the water and the xenomorph
yeah.
rises up behind her. It just looks
So scary.
cool. Yes, it's
That part really freaked me out, man. I'm not gonna
Me
lie.
too.
It's not like a jump scare, but I was like, "Oh, wow!"
I know.
That's really effectively
and
done.
it's like
yeah.
that's a moment where I think the creature design is so cool and just looks really effective right there.
Yeah.
Also, I don't like standing in water where there's like creatures down there, so it grosses me out.
Nope. Don't like
Me
that.
neither.
So
I'm out.
here's another part of the movie that I don't love that is Newt related, and this is going to make me sound kind of callous. But you find out back in the APC at the beginning that the sergeant is alive and one of the other Marines are alive, and the xenomorphs have taken them, and they decide not to go rescue them. They're like,
Right.
they're dead. And so like they
Right.
know Newt's been taken because of her tracker there, but they're like, I guess we got to rescue her. And I was like, well, you guys decided not to save those other two guys.
Well, but Ripley decides to rescue her though.
Oh yeah, but I would have been
Because-
like,
yeah, it is Ripley.
Right, which is what I'm saying. Like Ripley is the one who is like constantly being asked to like risk her life for this child, which just
realistically, would any of us go back for this child?
I mean, if it were my child, yeah.
I don't have kids, so probably not. This is not a question I want to answer in a public profile, but no, I would not. I would not want to do that.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. It does pose an interesting question because they have chosen not to rescue adults.
Right.
Which is where I think that mother, like her motivation is that mother bond right now. And that's like the only motivation she has. You know?
Hicks being kidnapped would have been much more effective. Oh, and Hicks gets sprayed in the face.
He does. And his body armor too. So she helps him out of his shirt. And so she helps him.
Jen says very seductively.
She helps him back onto the ship also.
Yes.
Because Bishop's there now, and they have the ship.
Yeah, and they've got 26 minutes. And I do love how both of them are on board with her going back. She's like, don't you fucking leave. And Bishop and Hicks are like, okay, we're not going anywhere. Like, you do your thing. We're not going to help
Yeah,
you.
I
but-
do love the way Bishop handles that. Bishop is like, all right, we're leaving. And she goes, how much time do we have left? 26 minutes? And she goes, all right, we're not leaving. We're not?
Right.
No. All
Yeah,
right.
roger that.
He's-
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, okay.
And I love it because she's made a choice and they're backing her up, which I think is a great moment, you know? And so now she's like taping weapons together and they're flying into a big cool room, which is where the nest is, right? So Bishop's
Right.
flying them
Yeah.
back to the nest or
The terraformer tower thing.
yeah. Which I
Yes.
think I've read it called the Hive, so I guess I should really call it the Hive. But she's getting all of
That
her
makes sense,
battle
yeah.
moment, like battle stuff together, like lots of ammo and grenades.
All the
yeah.
knowledge that Hicks taught her earlier. She tapes a flamethrower to the gun, gets the grenade for the grenade launcher, gets the ammo. She's ready to go.
And
She's
she-
looking cool.
I did like that she's immediately an expert at both the flamethrower and the assault rifle grenade launcher
Right,
thing.
exactly, yeah. But she gets into this elevator going down, and there's this scene of her like gearing up, and it's pretty cool. I like it.
It is pretty cool, yeah.
And flamethrower's ready. So she gets to the bottom and she's walking through the nest and she's like shooting like firing flames in the air, like warning kind of shots.
Well, she's firing down each hallway because when they first went in there, the xenomorphs are like against the wall and you couldn't really tell where they were. So if she uses the flamethrower down a hallway, she'll know if there's one there
Yeah.
against the wall.
Testing it
right?
out. Mhm.
I thought that was really smart. They don't actually say why she's doing that, but that's why I thought she was
That's why I
doing
thought
that.
she was
That
doing
made
it, too.
sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that makes sense.
This scene's pretty scary.
Well, and it is.
It
And
is.
it's like the scene in the first movie where she's flamethrowing down the hall, except for just one alien that she's walking away from.
Yeah.
The first one, there are like who knows how many of these things that she's now just
Yeah.
walking into the middle of. And then she finds Newt's tracker without Newt. And she's like, oh, fuck, I guess Newt's dead.
And I would have been
But-
gone ASAP.
Same, but she hears Newt scream.
Yes.
So she runs in that direction, finds Newt. Newt's not been implanted yet, for lack of a better term, and she like rips the resin stuff off around her and then grabs her, and then they start to leave.
Yes,
but they take a wrong turn, I guess.
There's fire and explosions, and then she's holding Newt, and she sees an egg being laid behind them from a big, gross, giant like sack.
These effects are so effective.
Especially in '86, they're so good for '86.
They hold up, man. They hold up.
They really do.
And then there's the fucking queen, and I do love the queen in this movie. I think she's so cool. She's like a lot bigger, and it's like all of the like a very extravagant or like exaggerated version of a xenomorph. And she's got all her little minions around her. And so Ripley shoots some fire, and she's like threatening to shoot all the eggs. And so the queen calls off the minions.
I do like that there's like an understanding between them. Ripley's looking at her and she's looking at Ripley, and then like they.
Well, yeah, it's a mother stare down moment, you know, because it's like the eggs and the eggs and Newt.
I do like that, and she's like, okay, well, I won't kill your daughter if you don't kill my kids, right?
I think Newt was created just for this scene, which I think is why it doesn't work with the rest of the movie, because he's like, you know, it would be really cool, and like this scene is what kind of happens out of his mouth, and they like built the movie to lead up to this.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of this is cool. It's just done really well, but yeah, I do kind of have a problem with the way the plot unfolds.
Yeah, like I don't think Newt's super necessary, but like they're like, what about a mother's standoff? What do you think about this? This would be a great scene.
And I think a lot of that was just of its time, and it was like, you can be a woman and strong too, but like what makes you a woman is that you're a mom, you know, and there are just so many different ways to be a woman or identify as female now that I think we just weren't really talking about or seeing represented in movies back then. But what bugs me here is that they have that agreement, and then Ripley like flames all of her eggs. Like she immediately reneges on the deal. And like,
she has this unspoken, you know, I won't kill yours if you won't kill mine. And then she walks closer to the door, and then Ripley goes, psych! And then starts to like spray down all of her eggs and stuff. I mean, I loved it, but I was like, that's cold.
It's so unnecessary because the reactor's blowing up anyway. Do you think she could have made it back to the elevator and gotten up there without anything happening if she would have stuck to the agreement?
I don't think the alien would have stuck to the agreement either.
But it was unnecessary. I'd be like, this is going to buy us some seconds. We'll run to the elevator, because they don't know the planet's blowing up.
That's what I would have tried to do, because it doesn't matter.
So this is where Ripley chooses blind revenge over Newt.
Right. This is blind rage over family right here for sure. Yeah.
Well, and so like to dig into this, I think this kind of goes into the Reaganism of the time too. It's like they're both mothers, but we identify with one mother, so that's whose child matters. And the other group, like we don't have to care about them because you've presented them as other. And I think there's probably a lot more to say about that. But
you can, but like if it was just strictly that reading, because I feel like James Cameron deliberately shows that the alien mother goes through a lot of pain watching this happen,
right?
And like is like screaming with her arms, like it like humanizes the queen when she does that for a minute.
It does.
I thought the queen looked more like, I thought we had an agreement. What is happening right now?
She's almost Ripley? Like crying. Well, yeah, she's pissed, but she's also crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she rips off her own egg sac and then chases after her.
I was like, holy shit.
Right.
That to me looked like it was like a bride who was taking off her train so she could go on the dance floor and dance. But a very different kind of connotation.
Yeah, those things are heavy.
I know. You don't want to dance with that on. I know. But so she does rip off her egg sac and goes, let's dance.
Yeah. Well, and so Ripley's gotten to the elevator first.
Did you not sort of love and hate the elevator, like slowly coming down? And she's like, come on.
I did. I was like, can't one thing go right?
Not as much as I hated the alien queen seeing the other elevator come down and be like, oh, I guess I'll just go up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. She's like, I could just take the elevator because I'm well versed in what elevators are.
Because they're an intelligent species.
But I also think she could climb faster than the elevator.
Probably.
That's probably true,
She's
too.
Big.
Yeah.
But, you know, she's saving her energy for battle. Also, she just ripped off that egg sac.
That's true.
She did, yeah. You got to have a little recovery time, right?
Postpartum care is hard. So they've got 4 minutes now, and the elevator is coming, but the queen is also coming too. And so she closes the door just in time, and she flamethrowers through the gate.
The flamethrower runs out, so she can't kill the queen this way.
Right.
It's more of like a distraction from her trying to attack them as they're going up in the elevator. But this is when the xenomorph mom sees the elevator open, and she goes in there.
Such a dumb scene.
No, I liked it. I think Jen's right. She's saving her strength. But anyway, so of course Ripley and Ripley and Newt get off the elevator first and they start running. And then I do love the reveal that she did get on the elevator, the xenomorph mom, because it opens and you can't see it originally. And then the light hits it and you're like, oh shit, it's on.
But also she gets out and she's like, Bishop, you left me, you evil fuck.
Exactly.
She's like, I knew you were going to betray me.
Right. And so she says, close your eyes, baby. And then this is awesome. And I love this part because Bishop just rises up behind her in the space plane thing. And she's like, hooray. And so they climb onto the ladder and they're safe, except places like crashing all over the place and knocking all kinds of shit down. And Bishop flies them out of there through some fire. And it's really cool. And then they get back to the ship. And they fly just out of the Death Star explosion radius. Right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And then they get out of the ship and they're like, woo, we did it. High five. And I do like that the xenomorph mom does not wait a day. Like, she is like, in her mind, the fight never stopped. So, like, Ripley's like, oh, thank God. But the xenomorph mom is like, let's do this.
Right.
She, like, milquetoases
Bishop. But not before he has this that'll do pig moment where, like, yeah, you did.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did good, Ripley. But now he becomes Bukkake Bot 2.0. And the milk goes everywhere.
The Bukkake Bot with the heart of gold.
Ooh, and we see that heart of gold right now because he gets ripped apart.
We do, yeah.
Because the tail of the alien just slices through his chest. And it's so sad and also really gross because I don't know what bukkake is, but I don't like that milk stuff. It's
Jen, you have to find Google. It's amazing. But he does get ripped in half too. Like, she wastes no time ripping him in half. I
still
love
do
that.
not understand how androids can be made with like thick white substances and like clear plastic tubes. That's all that's inside of him.
Mikey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but humans are made with thick white liquid in tubes. So
but
true.
That's not all they're made of when they grow up, you know?
I mean, that's fair, but that's how you make one. So now it's literally just Ripley and Newt because Hicks is incapacitated, like passed out, doesn't even know what's going on.
I think there's a throwaway scene where she like gives him morphine. He's out. He's out of commish.
So the Queen is trying to get to Newt. Ripley goes into some kind of loader staging room, and this part is awesome. And so she opens it, and I just wrote, it's loader time, because she opens the door and she's in the giant loader. So now she's equally sized to the Queen. And she says, get away from her, you bitch, which there's been a lot written about that line, and I'll try to link some of that stuff. But so they're now fighting each other.
So here, I mean, it makes a good movie, the loader scene.
Yeah.
This is a Marine military thing, and we've already established that there's a shit ton of guns in the dropship and all around. Like, she didn't have to get into the loader. She could have just got a gun and killed the Queen.
Mikey, we don't know if they moved all of the guns down to the planet. We don't see any guns around. It's like the only option for her is this loader. Honestly, the fight scene with the loader is awesome.
No, it's super awesome. I'm just saying, like...
Well, and she's not really trying to kill the xenomorph, the Queen, with the loader. She's trying to get to the airlock so she can suck it out.
Yeah, she wants to Harrison Ford it. Yeah, she wants to get off my plane.
Which she knows is going to work because that's what happened in the first movie, spoilers. But this scene is really cool. And as many problems as I kind of have with the mother versus mother thing and like reducing these two characters, I do like that there are two different versions of a mother, and it's executed so well that I can kind of get over the problems that I have with it because it is really, really cool.
Yeah, the coolness factor really just saves this movie.
It does.
It does.
Yeah. And so she's like dropped the Queen. And I like how mechanical the movements are here too. Because the Queen like latches onto Ripley. So they both fall down into the airlock. And so Ripley ditches the loader. But then the Queen grabs her foot. And so she's crawling up and she's holding on, but she manages to open the airlock. So everything's getting sucked out. And okay, question about this. Is she now exposed to space? Like, wouldn't the space kill her?
No, it wouldn't, because the air that's passing through her out the airlock would be able to provide her oxygen. What really bothers me here is that she's able to hold on with like her elbow hooked around the thing. The alien's not strong enough to hold on to her. Like, if the alien had like pulled off her shoe, that would have made more sense.
I think that's
to me.
what happens.
That's what happened. That's what happened. Yeah, her shoe
is it?
comes
Okay.
off.
Okay, then never mind. That makes sense.
We also got to mention that Bishop's upper half of Bukkake Bot has held onto a grate and has one arm on Newt.
Yes, because Newt gets sucked out by the airlock too.
So, but Jen, it's well established in science fiction that when the airlock opens, everything gets sucked out, but everybody's able to panic while everything's getting sucked out. That is established science fiction movie culture.
Okay.
What really bothers me about this is that she opens the airlock from where she is on the ladder, but she then decides to not close it from there, but to climb up even higher to then close the airlock.
It makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, I do understand that, she was there and she wanted to open that one, so she opened, because it's a double door, right? But she doesn't need to close both doors to save her life. She only needs to close that one. It makes no sense that she would climb up to close it.
And then she leaves her leg dangling off of it. And like every time I watch this movie, I'm like, she's going to cut her leg off.
I thought that too. I was like, that thing is going to close on your leg.
Yes.
But it doesn't.
Yeah, she saves her leg at the end. It's the last person saved.
And so now they're laying on the floor and they're all safe, and it's half of Bishop, and she says, not bad for a human. No, he says that. He says, not bad for a human.
Yeah, he says not bad for a human,
and I was just thinking, poor Bishop. Oh, because he was a good guy.
I mean, he can be put back together.
That's true.
Bishop's going to be fine.
And we do see
Bukkake Bots, they can be reassembled.
That's true. And so they put Bishop, top part of Bishop and Hicks into a stasis tube. But so she's putting Newt to bed now in this stasis pod thing.
Are we going to have bad dreams, new mommy?
Yeah, she does call her new mommy. Yeah. And when I was reading an article about whether this is feminist, that's something that they mentioned.
That's really weird.
It is
weird, yeah. So now she's putting her to bed and everything's fine. And then we see them like Sleeping Beauty thing, just like the movie started.
But instead of just Ripley, it's Ripley and Newt.
Yeah.
And that's the movie. Yeah.
Roll credits.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, give me some final thoughts. What do you guys think?
Still one of the best science fiction horror action movies of all time.
I really liked it. I think there's a lot of really interesting things to talk about, which tends to bump a movie up to me. I like when shit blows up, but I do still have some big problems with it.
This may be because we've watched 2 Eli Roth movies back to back, but this movie was rad and I loved it. I watched it twice. I watched it last night and again this morning. I think it was amazing. So I really liked it.
I'm glad you liked it, Todd. I will watch any movie about a futuristic space army fighting aliens.
Hell yeah. You know that's right. So let's do some box office, guys. So what do you think the production budget for this movie was?
I'll say 30.
I say 20 million.
All right, Jen, you're closer. It was 17 million. Although I will say if you adjust for inflation, that's right at 40 million. It's just barely under 40 million if you adjust for inflation. So this movie, everyone knows this movie was a hit when it came out. It did very, very well. In fact, it was #1 for an entire month when it came out. Its opening weekend, that was July 18th, 1986, it made a total of $10 million in its opening weekend. It beat Karate Kid Part 2. I know, right? Ruthless People, Back to School, and Top Gun.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It did very, very well. Like, the fact that it was #1 for a whole month is awesome.
Yeah.
They just don't make summer blockbusters like this anymore. Like, I would love to go to the movies this summer and see a movie like this.
I'd love to go to the movies this summer and see anything, but that's not a possibility right now. What do you guys think this movie made domestically in its theatrical run?
70 million.
120 million.
Okay, it made $85 million domestically, and it made another $98 million internationally.
Wow.
So it put it up at $183 million worldwide. And if you adjust that for inflation, that's $431 million today.
Nice.
It is a huge success.
That's during its theatrical run?
Yeah, just the theatrical run. Yeah.
Because I imagine that it's probably been making money since then.
Oh, you mean like it made a lot of money in DVD and Blu-ray sales too. Like this movie made a lot of money. Yeah. So that's box office. Jen, you got some fun facts for us?
Yeah, I've got kind of a lot of fun facts about this. So I may not say all of them.
Oh, I bet you do.
I'm going to link a lot of stuff because there's a lot that's been written about this movie and we just can't go into all of it. Apparently, it was a pretty troubled production. They filmed this in London and a lot of the crew was like really loyal to Ridley Scott, who made the original, and they didn't like James Cameron or his wife, the producer, Gail Ann Hurd. And they ended up walking off at one point And apparently once, I know, and like she convinced them to come back, but it was just kind of like nobody really liked each other. And I also think like he was pretty unknown at the time because he was only like in his 30s. So I think a lot of it was they just didn't take him seriously. But when it was over, he gave this speech to them. And I have a quote from what he said. He said, "This has been a long and difficult shoot, fraught by many problems. But the one thing that kept me going through it all was the certain knowledge that one day I would drive out of the gate of Pinewood, which is the studio, and never come back, and that you sorry bastards would still be here." Wow.
Pinewood Studios is a famous studio in London.
Yeah. The studio did not want to do a sequel to Alien for a long time because they didn't think it was going to be, it would either cost too much or it wouldn't like make its budget back. But James Cameron wrote a script. So I hate to say this, but I think our $sign myth is just that. I don't know if that's actually true because...
Well, for this,
right.
For this one.
So he had written kind of a skeleton of an idea and was trying to kind of get them to make his movie. He was currently working on Terminator, and it was in pre-production. But there was a scheduling problem for Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was I think it's Conan the Barbarian that he was working on. But so there was a delay in filming for Terminator, which gave him time to finish the script. And they said, okay, if Terminator is successful, then you can write and direct Aliens. And of course, Terminator was successful, so that's how he got to do this one.
That's really cool.
Yes. So the Marine actors, they had them trained together for 2 weeks, and they all had to read Starship Troopers 2. But Ripley and Paul Reiser couldn't do this for like scheduling reasons, and Lieutenant Gorman, the actor who played him, couldn't do it either, which I think actually fit.
Yeah, I do too.
The way it was shot, because they were kind of like, they didn't have that bond with the rest of the cast. So James Remar, do you guys know who he is?
Nope.
He plays Dexter's dad. He's been in a bunch of other stuff, and you probably recognize him if you saw him. But he was originally cast as Hicks. It wasn't going to be Michael Biehn. The story is he left over creative differences with Cameron, and that was the story for a long time. And then years later, he gave an interview that said he actually had gotten arrested for drug possession and that they weren't going to have time to stop the production to deal with his legal issues, so they ended up firing him. But he is still in the movie.
Okay.
There was a scene, I think, when they're like getting onto the ship, or one point you can see his back because the scene was too expensive for them to reshoot. So he's technically still in it. But they replaced him with Michael Biehn because Michael Biehn had just worked on Terminator with James Cameron. So he's kind of the go-to. And I think Michael Biehn is great in this. I like James Remar a lot. So Carrie Henn is the actress who played Newt. This is her only screen credit, and she chose not to pursue acting, and she's now a teacher. So go, Carrie.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know.
Yeah.
So this was nominated for 7 Academy Awards.
Wow.
I know.
That's awesome.
I know, especially given the kind of movie it is.
That's what I mean. Like, you don't really see like horror action movies getting that many nominations.
Right. Well, it was nominated for Best Score. It was nominated for a bunch of effects awards. And I think it won 1 or 2 effects awards, but I'm not for sure. But Sigourney Weaver was nominated for Best Actress for this.
Really?
Yes, which was the first time a female had been nominated for an action role, which I thought was so cool.
That's cool.
That's amazing. Good for her.
know.
I mean, I'm sure she didn't win because whatever. They always snub horror
She
stuff.
didn't
But,
win,
you know.
yeah. All right. So the effects. So the hardest effect for them to do, like physically, was the loader. And there's actually, it works by, there's a man behind it, behind Ripley, operating all of the arms and legs. Yeah, you just can't see it. But if, like, I thought that was a real thing. And apparently, like, they got contacts by a lot of companies wanting them to make them loaders for like their workers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it looks cool. And like, I was reading this and I was like, oh, that's not a thing people use. I just thought it was like
It is a thing now, though. Like, people have invented that sense. Yeah, they're called exoskeletons. They don't look like that. They're actually much more streamlined now than that was.
Yeah.
But still, it like, that's a real thing now.
Is it? Well, it's so cool. And I think it just kind of speaks to the effect that I just didn't question that it wasn't something that everybody has. You know, it's like a dolly, you know? All right. So the alien suits in this one are more flexible and they were able to move a little better. And I do think the aliens are more effective in this one than in the first one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But although I think they shot it smartly, because in the first one, like there's only a couple of times where I'm like, oh, that's a guy in a suit. You know, whereas here they cast dancers, gymnasts, and stuntmen so that they were able to move like really flexibly. And I think it just looks really effective. And we already said the face huggers were moved with wires. All right. So the most difficult to shoot were the scenes with the Queen. And it would take apparently 12 to 14 different operators at one time. And it was like this big system of wires. And so the article I was reading said that James Cameron was able to shoot this without showing all of those wires is like a testament to how well he can direct action sequences. Because I buy into the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Sigourney Weaver did not actually want to do this movie. She was afraid that it would be poorly written and would tarnish the memory of the original. But she liked James Cameron's script and she liked the mother angle. And that's like, I didn't love it now, but that's kind of what I'm saying. Like in the 80s, I think I would have viewed it differently. And I think I would have felt a lot more empowered by it. But so that was what sold her on it. But they were having a contract dispute and the agents were trying to get Cameron to write another script without her, but he refused to. And he said, no, this story is about Ripley. Because of that, she was able to get a $1 million pay for this plus percentage of profits. So she made a ton of money. Yeah, I think it was like 3 times what she'd made.
Yeah,
on the
good
original.
For her, man.
I know, man.
Because it's really made a lot of money. That $1 million is great. It's a great payout, especially in 86. But getting points on the back end and getting some of that revenue, that's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, as you were talking about box office, I was thinking that. I was like, yeah, good for you, Sigourney.
Yeah,
also, like, I don't know how much if she's continuing to make money from Alien, but I mean, she is firmly established as a horror icon for good reason.
Oh, yeah.
So the Alien Nest. So this was filmed in a defunct London power station called Acton Lane. And so I think it's kind of the basement. They put all the black resin stuff up on the ceilings to make the hive. And then when they were done filming, they just didn't clean any of it up. Because it was it wasn't like it was a factory that wasn't in use anymore until 1989 when Tim Burton's Batman started filming there. This is the setting for the Axis Chemical Building.
Yeah.
So they walked in and they saw all this alien hive shit that hadn't been touched in like 3 years. They're like, holy fuck. How creepy would that be though? And how awesome. Like if I knew that was going to happen, I would go hide in there and I would just like reach my arm out, you know?
Well, because it would be like alien hive shit plus like cobwebs and stuff.
Right.
It had been 3 years. Yeah.
Right. Speaking of Bill Paxton and Lance Hendrickson. So they are the only 2 actors to have achieved the death trifecta, which means both of them have been killed by a xenomorph, a Terminator, and a Predator.
What?
I know. And
that's amazing.
It is. Isn't that a cool little distinction to have?
That is the horror version of an EGOT.
It really is. I know. It's so cool. And those are my fun facts.
Well, thank you for your fun facts, Jen.
You're welcome.
So let's do that scary scale, Jen.
All right. Hey, listeners, our scary scale is a scale we use to rank how scary we thought the movie was. It's not a ranking of the quality of the movie. It's how scared we were when we watched it today. Our 1 example is Ghostbusters. Our 10 example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right, Todd.
I'm going to give it a 3.
All right.
There were some very creepy moments. There weren't a lot of jump scares, though, so it wasn't super, super scary.
Mm-hmm.
But the facehugger scene when it's trying to get Ripley and Newt, that was super scary. And there were a bunch of other like scary moments, intense moments. So I'm going to give it a 3.
All right, Mikey?
I'm also going to give it a 3.
Nice.
Wow, that surprises me, Mikey.
I know
you're like dead inside.
I know it surprises you, but that facehugger scene like still scares me to this day. And I've seen that scene like a dozen times, but each time I'm scared of it.
Just
yes,
like you can't even see it, but it's absolutely, yeah. Jen, what do you give it this on the scary scale?
I'm gonna give it a 2.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. I know, which is weird that I'm ranking it lower than Mikey.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If this took place not in space, would that change it for you?
I don't know. I mean,
that's my favorite pod joke, by the way.
I know the fact that she hates space movies.
Although, like, I know you're joking, but like, if it weren't science fiction and I was a little more bought in, I think I probably would have been more scared. You know,
sure.
And that's the scary scale.
All right. So this week, you guys made me watch Aliens, and honestly, thank you very much for that. What are you guys making me watch next week?
Next week, Todd. Oh, I'm so excited because we are watching Resident Evil next week.
Oh God,
Todd, I will say I think you're gonna like it because this is one of my guilty pleasure franchises. This very quickly veers into Mikey movie territory.
There's some Mikey movie elements, but there's also some Jenn elements too. So I think it'll be fun. I'm also interested as a Twitch person. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on it too.
Yeah, I was a Twitch streamer for like years, and I did play this once, and it scared the shit out of me.
Todd, I think they're known as Twitch people. I think.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Sorry.
Excuse me,
Right,
Jen.
right. I'm an expert on it, so.
I just got Twitch-splained.
I mean, I didn't want to do it, but I just didn't see another option. So.
That's so funny.
So guys, watch Resident Evil for next week.
Yeah.
That'll be your homework. Oh, yeah. So, Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
I actually do.
All right. Well, while you're bringing it up on your phone, let me tell them how they can have their review read on the podcast. And that is simply to go to your Apple Podcast app and leave us a 5-star text review and, write something out that Mikey can read for us and have a little fun with. So,
Yeah.
Mikey, you got a review for us?
Yeah. Cha-cheese.
Cha-cheese.
21
Cheese.
Oh, I like it, Jen.
says they make a 5-star review called "New Favorite Podcast!" ! Exclamation point!
Oh, well, thank you.
I never leave reviews, but I couldn't resist. I cannot get enough of this show. I started with just one show and had to then start from the very beginning. I laughed the whole time, all while listening to my favorite horror movie reviews.
Well, thank you so much for that amazing, amazing review. And guys, if you want to have your review run on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are a member of the Consequence Podcast Network, so if you would check out all of their awesome shows like Halloweenies, This Must Be the Gig, Losers Club, and you can check out our shit at horrorvirgin.com. And if you want to follow us on social, we are at horrorvirgin everywhere. If you want to follow us all individually, Jen is at Jen Ferratu, Mikey is at M Randolph24, and I am at Todd J Awesome. And if you can help financially support the show, please do by going to patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where you'll have access to a bunch of great levels and a bunch of great things like bonus episodes. We have hours and hours of bonus episodes you can binge right now. We've got great exclusive video content. All the episodes have director's cuts of them, so they're a little bit longer, and they're available ad-free right now. So it's a lot of great perks, guys. Go check that out. If you can't afford to financially support the show, but still would like to get some daily free Horror Virgin content, go to Horror Virgin's Facebook group and join that awesome, almost 1,000-member community right now. It's pretty amazing.
I know, man. Well, that's going to be it for us, guys. I think the podcast is going to explode in like 17 minutes, so we got to get out of here.
No, we gotta go to nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure to be done with the show.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's the only way to be safe, really.
It is.
So,
It really is.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us for Aliens, guys. I'm Jen.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, guys.
Have an amazing week and stay safe and wear your mask.
Yes, wear your mask.
Bye.
Newt nerds.
Xenomorph nerds.
Consequence Podcast Network.